All right, welcome back to U Talk Sports. Our game of the night is just about to tip off. It is Duke versus Miami. I'm going to mute the pregame here. I've got the game on my TV, just like I'm sure you do. And I'm excited for this game. I'm excited to see what Duke is all about. The only game I've seen them play this year is against North Carolina. And I'm excited to see what Duke can bring in our game of tonight, Duke versus University of Miami. Let's go ahead and open the Zoom room here and see who is joining us from the fan base tonight. Welcome. We are just setting up the Zoom room here and getting everyone in for tonight's game of the night, the Duke Blue Devils versus the University of Miami Hurricanes. An ACC showdown. Duke, of course, is ranked 8th in the country right now, and University of Miami has been very up and down. And we, of course, saw a great run by University of Miami in the tournament last year, making it all the way to the Final Four before eventually losing to UConn. But they did knock off Houston, who was a #1 seed, and Texas, who was my pick last year. And a lot of those players are back. We're going to be talking about those players and checking out this game tonight. Of course, Duke is led by Philip Kowski, who was expected to be a one and done. He was one of the top high school recruits last year. He kind of underachieved in his career at Duke and is back. He'll probably be going pro at the end of tonight. So let's go around the horn and just say hi to the people that have joined us here today. Welcome, Dan and Jackie, and we got two Dans and Jason and Bobby and Jonas. Good to see you guys. Welcome to U Talk Sports. We're just about to tip off our game of the night here today. If you're brand new to YouTube Sports, or if you're watching us on YouTube, this is the sports talk show where you get to be in the show. And we always center each night around a specific game. Tonight's game is Duke versus Miami. We've been doing a lot of NBA games, but of course the NBA is on break. The NBA will be back tomorrow. We're going to do a doubleheader because I want to watch that Golden State Lakers game that doesn't even start until 10 o'clock. But usually we are here every night from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That's when we'll be broadcasting tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm going to put the link to join us. Let's pause that. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm going to put the link to join us on Zoom up here. If you're watching us, if you're here on Zoom, I'm going to give you a link to go over and join us on YouTube. And I want to start with everyone who's here on Zoom. We're going to hear from everyone here today. I want to start with having you put into the YouTube chat your pick for tonight. So tonight's game is Duke favored by 6.5. It is just about to tip off right now. Boom, we are live. If you're watching this game on ESPN along with me, we've got the chat in YouTube that you can chat. If you're not camera ready, we've got to have the Gamecast center stage here, giving us play-by-play of everything that's happening. And then you can join us here on Zoom if you want to give us your take. Tonight, as every night, we're going to be talking about basketball, football, with a heavy emphasis on this game here. And Miami won the tip and missed their first shot. And now we'll see what Duke can do here. Duke starting 5. I want to get your guys' takes. I remember Roach from last year, Filipowski from last year. These other 3 guys, I don't know much about yet because I just start watching basketball when football ends, which was just about a week or two ago. This Miami team, I remember Nigel Pack. I don't see him on the floor tonight, but I know he's back from that Final Four team last year. We're going to go around the horn and get takes from everyone on this game. If you want to give us a pregame take on this game, go ahead and use the Zoom raise of hand feature. Just go ahead and click on the Zoom raise of hand feature and I'll call on you. If you don't have a take on this game, if you're here just to talk sports in general, don't feel like you need to comment on this game. We're going to have plenty to talk about when we get into football and basketball today, but do make sure that everyone is over in the chat, and let's hop over to the chat and just see who's here. Remember, the point spread tonight is really the key, I think, to picking this, right? If you're just picking straight up, it'd be easy to take Duke, but Duke on the road favored by 6.5. I think suddenly this becomes a little bit more of an interesting pick here today. Nothing like a home dog. And these teams have played a lot of close games over the year. I was just looking at this game. Last year, they played down here. Duke won by 2. Duke, of course, knocked Miami out in the ACC tournament last year. I was just reading up on some of the players from last year that I see here. So let's see what we got as far as picks here. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us your pick in the chat now. We've got Dan Vasta taking Duke. Let's see. Christian is talking about Roach and is a fourth-year senior. Dan Schreiber is taking Duke. Yolanda is going with Miami. Brooke is taking Miami. Let's see. Is this El Manny Racco is taking Duke. Jackie's taking Miami. Jason is taking Miami. I'm going to take Miami
from deep
as well. Miami to cover here. Duke's off right now to a quick lead, 4-2. Let's hop back over to that game. And if you have a pregame take on this, go ahead and use the Zoom raised hand like you see Jonas did here. I want, after we get our pregame takes in, I want to go around the horn and just have everyone introduce themselves. I'll give you the format that we'll be doing that. Again, this is You Talk Sports. I am your host and founder, Greg Wells. We are a startup. This is a new concept, bringing people together to watch the game of the night. And our mission is that you never need to, be home alone watching the game anymore. If you want to have people to talk to, we're going to be here for you every night, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. It's a lot more fun watching the game together, having people to talk to about the game. If you always watch Pat McAfee or any of those shows and always wanted to be in the show, this is your opportunity to be in the show. So let me put the Zoom link to join us into the chat here. And then we're going to dive right into taking takes on this game here tonight. All right, so let's go first to Jonas. Love to get your take on this game, Jonas.
It'll be a quick one. Duke is 8th seed. They usually beat Miami. Duke is usually just too good, so I'm going to go with Duke. Although that guy from last night I thought was hilarious, the one who hated Duke so much that he said he'll insult your kids if they're Duke fans. I thought that was very funny, but I don't think Miami can beat Duke. No way.
Yeah, Duke, of course, is a household name. I think they're one of the most hated teams in sports, let alone basketball.
Duke is the Dallas Cowboys of college.
Jackie, what are you looking for in this game?
I'm looking. See, Duke got the squad already. They got number 30. They got the kid mechanics. But I just want the upset. Every time I watch a college sports game, I want to see an upset. And the Canes are at home. They got to pull this one up.
Yeah, I'm taking Miami with the points tonight. I think they'll be able to keep it close.
And 11-3 at the crib. 11-3.
Yeah, and Philip Kowski has not been playing well. I saw he was averaging about 10 points a game over the last few games. This Duke team, has not been the same since Coach K left. And we're going to keep an eye on the game, and we're going to go around the horn and get introduced to everyone here. And what I thought would be a fun starter question would be, I'd love to have you tell us your name, where you're joining us from today, and who is your favorite player of all time. And ideally, since we're talking college hoops, if you have multiples like me, pick your favorite college hoops player. But if you don't follow college hoops, just give us your favorite player of all time. And then what I want to get is one thing that is unique about that player that maybe the rest of us don't know. I find this is always fun to get to know. So let's use the Zoom raise of hands. If you want to give this take to introduce yourself, which I hope everyone will. You do need to be on camera in order to speak, but using the Zoom raise a hand just kind of puts you into the queue here and makes it easier for me to see everything. You want to mostly stay in gallery view here. And we're going to be breaking down this game. I would encourage everyone to keep one eye on the game. And as we go to commercial breaks, or definitely at halftime, we'll give our take on the game. I've got some stuff that I was researching from last year's teams and what to expect here. And there's a big 3 from Miami, cutting it to 8-7. All right, so we're going to go first to Jason, and then Bobby, and then Dan. Jason, where are you joining us from, and who's your favorite college player, and what's something unique about that player?
Hey guys. Hey, what's up, Greg? Hey everybody. Jason from North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Uh, Big time Tar Heel fan. Of course I got Jordan behind me, but uh, I would say Vince Carter. Vince Carter was one of my big time Tar Heel guys that he had a long career in the NBA. Was really successful at UNC, man. The human highlight film, man, that kid could jump from anywhere and like just embarrass you. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he is the cousin of Tracy McGrady.
I love that. Really interesting tidbit there. And, Carter's it's great having a Carolina fan here tonight for the Duke game. When we get into some Duke memories, I'm sure you're going to have some good ones.
Oh yeah, I tell, like I said last night, I can go all day with. I hate them so much. I know them. That's the thing. That's the thing.
And I'm going to give mine. I usually start. I want to go and kind of just set the stage so everyone knows what to expect. And I'll tell you something, that I look for. And we're looking to grow and have people on the team here. We're looking for unique takes. We're looking for people that can be entertaining, be funny, give us some outrageous, over the top takes. We can't, we're not going to beat Pat McAfee at what Pat McAfee's talking about, right? If we come on here and say the same stuff ESPN's saying, we're not really adding any value. That's okay. As a fan, we encourage all our fans to come up and be in the show. If you're on YouTube and just want to be here as a fan, but if you're looking to join the team, we're looking for people that, have real insights, real nuggets, especially from your home teams in the Nuggets. And one of the things I look for is, if I ask somebody who's their favorite player, and they tell me LeBron, I'm like, it's so boring. Like I was a Pats fan. Of course, I still am a Pats fan. And during their heyday, people would ask me, who's your favorite player? And I would say Wes Welker was the guy I wore his jersey, right? I like to pick the guy who's a little bit off there that only a real fan would know. If you're wearing the Brady jersey around, you're just like everybody else. You can't tell who the real fans are and who they're not. And I'll give you, since we're talking college hoops tonight and we're talking Duke, I'm going to talk about my favorite player from Duke, and I'd love to hear yours if you have one, but it's Bobby Hurley. And that's because I played against him in high school. He was on some great teams in the early 90s. Some of you guys may not be old enough to remember Bobby Hurley. His dad was a very famous high school coach. Danny Hurley, of course, is a UConn coach now, Bobby's brother. They were both point guards back in the day. Bobby was in my class. Danny was his little brother. It's so great to see Danny being more successful as coach right now. But, one of the things I think people don't really know about Bobby Hurley is that he used to, him and his dad had a merchandising deal in the 90s to sell these shoes that were like raised in the top and would make you jump higher, like those sneakers. Those shoes were on Seinfeld, I think. And it was funny to me because Hurley wasn't known for his vertical leap or anything, but it's one of the first like merchandising deals I ever saw a kid have. I don't even know how they were allowed to do it because he was still a high school player and he was such a household name as a high school player that that he had this sneaker deal back then. It must have all been under his dad. I'm not sure what the logistics are of it, but that's a little trivia about Bobby Hurley. All right, so Jason Wen, if you could put your hand down after you go, we're going to go next to Bobby. Our game's back underway, so we're back from the commercial. We'll come back on here. And this is the way tonight's going to go. We're going to be focusing in on the game. So if you're coming to YouTube to watch the game, this is the place you want to watch it because we're going to be talking about the game. We're going to be talking about other fun stuff. We're going to be in community, enjoying watching this game together. So we're hoping if you came here to watch this game on YouTube, that you'll come join us on Zoom or at least be in our YouTube chat. And I'm totally transparent as we're launching this business. That's our marketing plan. Every night there's between 200 and 500 people per NBA game that go to YouTube to watch the game. And so if we build this show around the game of the night, whatever game's on TNT or ESPN, then people are going to want to come join here and be a part of the show and watch the show here because we're talking about it. So that's kind of our plans for growing this. Of course, the NBA will be back on tomorrow. We'll be covering that. All right, Dan, tell us where you're joining from and who's your favorite player and what's something we probably don't know about him.
Yeah, I'm from Illinois here, so the Windy City. It's actually beautiful in for February. Normally we have a foot of snow outside, but yeah, I love the Bobby Hurley love. One of four players all time with 1,000 career assists, so not too shabby there. And he's all time leader in assists. So I don't know if I can one up your stat, but in that similar era, a few years later, one of my favorite players growing up was Ed Cota of North Carolina, also a part of the 1,000 assist club. And he was, I thought, had probably the best handles I'd ever seen at that point. You know, prior or after, Pistol Pete Maravich. I mean, he was pretty much Steph Curry on the hardwood in terms of handles way before Steph Curry was even born. So Ed Cota was kind of Jason Williams with, four McDonald's All-Americans on the side. So Vince Carter, maybe the greatest dunker ever. Antoine Jameson was an absolute superstar. So I'll give under the radar love to Ed Cota. That was back when the Heels had their unis were probably about as good as it gets, maybe in any sport. Just the visuals for the Carolina Blue was always a kid growing up, must see TV, but really diehard college basketball fans. So I'm also a certified bracketologist for bracketmatrix.com as well. So I've been doing that for a handful of years, but been in sports media and athletics for most of my life. So eat, sleep, drink sports, and certainly college hoops. Really not a better time right now. So love it, and watching. Got 3 games on right now, so watching a few good ones. Duke and Miami. I got on the main screen here. So love ACC hoops. Can talk that all day, 24/7. But happy to be with you guys, and looking forward to talking some hoops tonight.
Awesome, Dan. Yeah, we're glad to have you here. It's nice to meet you tonight and get your contributions to the show here today. And, we'd love to, we're going to do a bracket contest for everyone in our community here. And how fun will that be for all of us to be here watching the games together, being on Zoom together throughout March Madness, whenever you can, of course, right? We all have lives and jobs and can't be here 24/7 during March Madness, but awesome. Let's go next to Bobby. Tell us where you're joining from and who's your favorite player and something we maybe don't know about him.
Hey, how's everybody doing today?
All right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, Bobby.
Perfect. Yep. How's everybody doing today? My name is Bobby Sanders. I'm from Denver, but I currently live in Kansas City. Now, before I start though, now today I got my Playboy outfit on, so y'all got to see the pants too. I got the whole 9. You know what I mean? So it's a pleasure to be on. I love all you guys for your sports, and I see all the backgrounds and stuff. So that's like super awesome. I appreciate that. I'm a big sports fan too. So to answer your question, Greg, I've got a few guys that I really loved growing up. I'd start with Larry Johnson. So this might be dating me a little bit, but Larry Johnson was a man among boys. UNLV running Rebels, that championship team, that run was fantastic. And Larry Johnson was he was nasty. You know what I mean? I mean, dunking with force, power. And, when I watch college, I always watch to see who I think is going to be a good pro. When you saw Larry Johnson, you knew he was going to be able to play some ball. Now, the injuries and stuff kind of deflated his career, but he was a phenomenal player. Did a stint with the Knicks. He was always one of my favorite college players. I also liked Kenyon Martin, too. I mean, Kenyon Martin was just a beast. That Cincinnati team probably would have won the championship, but he broke his leg. So those are 2 of my favorites, and I'm a huge Michigan Wolverine fan. So I got a lot of love for Chris Webber. The Fab Five, man, the Fab Five made me think I could play basketball. I mean, we're talking about 5 freshmen. I mean, it's just unheard of. No team has ever done it. And they didn't win the championship, but they went to the Final Four 2 years back to back.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for those insights. Filipkowski just threw it down there. Very nice. If you guys saw that on the replay, I didn't know he had those hops in him, but I guess when you're that tall,
he's 7 foot tall, man. I can do that at 7 foot.
I love, Bobby, that you're mentioning the Fab Five and the UNLV team, because that ties right in with me mentioning Bobby Hurley. Those are some of the greatest teams, and Yeah, I really think that was like the peak of college basketball back in the day. Although Dan probably can tell us a lot of great moments since then. But all right, let's continue. If you want to, we're going to go next to Dan Schneider. Tell us where you're joining us from. Dan, great to see you again. And who's your favorite player and something we probably don't know about that player?
Nice seeing you. I'm from Long Island, New York, and my favorite player, uh, my of quarterback wise, is Drew Brees.
Who that?
Yeah, Jackie. Yeah, I'm sure he's one of your favorite players.
I love hearing that from a Jets fan, right? So that's some mad respect there. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back here tonight. We're going to be talking football in a little bit. Let's continue with the takes on we're going to Yolanda. Yolanda, tell us where you're joining from and who's your favorite player, then probably something we don't know about that player.
Hey. Hey, I am Yolanda. I am joining you guys from Aurora, Colorado tonight. Two of my favorite players, again, Kenyon Martin, Kmart. Definitely loved him, and especially when he was on the Cincinnati team. But my other favorite player comes from the Tar Heels, of course, Ty Lawson. Definitely loved Ty Lawson. I loved him on the field and off the field. And a little tidbit that people may not know about Ty Lawson, and I'm going to be telling all his business, but hey, I don't care. But anyway, he used to be in my little cousin's DMs before DMs became popular. So we got a lot of so we got a lot of opportunity to hang with him. So it was very interesting. So there you
Oh
go.
man, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, we want to get into some of those stories before the night is done here. Awesome. Well, glad to have you back again, Yolanda. Hey, I want to just remind everyone who's here on Zoom, if you could head over to the YouTube channel, be sure to pull it up. I'll put the link here in Zoom. Every view counts when you're a startup. So if you can head over to our YouTube channel and just put in there your pick for tonight. If you're taking Miami plus the points, it's 6.5 at home, or if you're taking Duke. And if you already put that in, let's have you put what you think of the total in there. The total for this game is 150. Let's have you put that pick in the chat over there. And we're going to talk about that next as we go. And if you already went, Bobby and Dan Schneider, if you could put your hands down in Zoom so we keep the batting order clean here. I think it's interesting. We've heard Kenyon Martin's name twice already. You already put that in. Let's have you put Kenyon Martin, I only remember him from that one season, right? I think it wasn't like he was a guy I could remember for 4 years. It was a very dominant season. And it was such a shame he didn't play in March Madness. You would think that would have made him be less memorable, that he didn't have a March Madness run and only really had that 1 year. That really shows his dominance, his effect that he had on the game on that team. All right, we're going next to Trip Young and then Christian. Trip, tell everyone where you're joining from and who's your favorite player and something we maybe don't know about that player.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Trip from Brooklyn. My favorite college team is actually Duke. So I'm picking Duke to win tonight. I don't ever bet against any of my teams, so I'm definitely picking Duke to win this game tonight. I will say this though, I'm still not over Coach K not being at Duke anymore, and I think it kind of is taken away a little bit from the whole Duke like spiel or whatever, him not being there. My favorite player from Duke was Grant Hill though.
Nice.
I think Grant Hill was one of the best college players ever, and I think he would have been so far higher up on the all-time list if he hadn't got injured in the NBA.
He got to me though, man. So it's all good.
He did. He's definitely winning.
Yeah, I mean, Grant Hill, a 4-year college player, won a national championship in his freshman year, right? And
Hill was a great player.
and has had a lot of great moments. I'd love to go back down memory lane with that. And so I think you're right that with Coach K leaving Miami, Duke, that's really impacted the legend status of Duke. It's interesting to see if they're going to be able to kind of keep their dominance going. If they have an early exit this year, it could be the beginning of the end for this franchise and Shire as their coach. Let's make sure everyone hops back over to YouTube if you didn't already, and just put in here your take on the over-under. Yolanda said under 150. I think based on this start, it's 19-14 right now with under 10 minutes to go. That's a pretty good pick there. And I would love to just get everyone's take. And this, everyone's always telling me how good they are with their picks. This is a chance for us to kind of validate that and have some fun with it. And also every comment, every engagement helps with us in YouTube. Our goal for tonight is that people that are coming onto YouTube looking to watch this game or have people to talk to about this game will join us up on here. We've had a couple people hop on mid-show. So that's awesome that you're joining us, and we want to welcome you to U Talk Sports. All right, let's continue in our openings around the horn here. We're going to Christian, and then Jackie, and then Ashley. Christian, where are you joining us from, and who's your favorite player, and something we maybe don't know about that player?
Joining out of North Carolina, right outside of the Charlotte area. Favorite player, I gotta go with Tua. I'm a Duke fan, Christian Laettner. I loved how
God. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I loved how he responded to all of the
Good
hate.
God.
I loved that each of the 4 years that he was there, they made it to the Final Four. He won 2 national championships, 91 and 92 at Duke.
He hit the buzzer beater.
Hit the buzzer
Right?
beater, first in 3-point field goal percentage, made free throws, and second in personal fouls. So I gotta love a guy that meets adversity or matches energy, should I say, on the court. Second, I don't know if too many people remember him, but Juan Dixon, out of Maryland.
Juan Dixon was nice.
He was very nice. 2001, I believe, is when they won their first national championship ever. 2002, excuse me. And that guy he was unstoppable. It was like that was one of the first guys I remember watching that truly could go one-on-one in any situation and make a bucket.
Yeah, he carried them to a national title. And it's interesting that you like Laettner. I'm kind of a Duke fan going back to my early days, and I would certainly say Laettner's probably had the most achieved college career of any player in my lifetime. But that doesn't mean I like him at all. I don't think he's very. I don't think he's very likable.
Well, I think the perception of him that is put out there. I love somebody that doesn't care about the media's perception of them.
I don't know, man. Laettner's like
he's stepping on players, right? He was stepping on kids. That's not.
Think about the shit that they were talking to him though. Like this.
Oh, you went on mute. You're on mute suddenly, Christian.
Sorry. Think about, some of the things that he had to go through. And even Grant Hill said this as his player. He was like, man, I'm expecting this white kid to come in here, like, privileged, entitled and all this shit. And he's over here listening to rap music and putting me on the stuff that I never even knew about. Grant Hill came from the hills, so I think that the perception of Laettner was I think his reaction to that was just because of how much hate he got. So, I
think we could do a whole segment later on Laettner, what people think of him. Everything you said are facts about Laettner, but to me, you still got to respect the game. You don't step on players. You don't disrespect the game. That's not perception. Those are facts. I will tell you, my favorite memory of Laettner was actually his freshman year, seeing him take out Alonzo Mourning. I'm like,
oh God,
wow, who is this kid that knocked out? I had picked Georgetown that year to go all the way with Alonzo Mourning, and Laettner took him out, man. That was that's kind of the first time I can remember seeing him play. He did have a game. So I'd love to get more takes on Laettner. If anybody, let's go over to the YouTube chat and tell us if what your thoughts are on Laettner. Let's put in one word. Let's have everyone put in one word in the YouTube chat to describe their feelings of Laettner. For me, he stands for a lot of what is not good in the game. So I'd have to think about one word. Maybe I'll see what you guys put in there about Leitner. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we'd love to get your take on Leitner. The game's on a commercial here. We'll be back center stage in the game. We're going next to Ashley. Ashley, tell us where you're joining us from tonight and who's your favorite player and something we maybe don't know about that player.
Hey guys, I'm from San Diego. So I don't really follow college basketball. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, guys. I follow college football a lot more, but I heard this game was good. I looked it up. I would go for Duke, definitely Duke. I'm waiting to see the USC versus UCLA game, guys, to be honest. Like that's what I'm looking forward to. So I still don't really exactly have a favorite college player at the moment, guys. I'm still waiting for it, but I have really high hopes in Bronny James. He came in and helped out because Morgan was out. And so, I mean, that's what I gotta say.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. We'll be talking football in a little bit. Again, don't feel like you need to raise your hand and give us a take if we're not talking about a topic that you have something to add to it. The topic right now is just introducing yourself and your favorite player. Doesn't have to be college basketball, because not everybody does follow college basketball, but since that's what we're talking about, that's what we would love to hear. I've been wanting to catch some of that USC team, right, and see what's up with them, what's up with Bronny. I read something recently that Rodman has a kid on that team too. Wow, like this is like the whole alumni crew over here.
Rodman's daughter is a better athlete than his son and LeBron James' son. He's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
Where does she play?
She plays soccer. She's on the USA
USA soccer.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's on the
I
USA
am a big
team.
soccer
She's
fan. I'm gonna have to
amazing.
check that out.
And she's long.
Is that his daughter he had with Madonna?
I don't know. She looked.
I don't think he claims that one, Greg. So this is the one he claims. So
She's better looking than Rodman, that's for sure.
Not Carmen Electra either.
Yeah, she don't look like Rodman's kid.
That's
No,
not
she
saying
don't.
too much.
All right, let's go next to Brandon. Where are you joining us from? Who's your favorite player and something we don't know about that player?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Brandon. I am broadcasting to you all from Oakland, Tennessee. It's a small town outside of Memphis. And as far as my favorite college basketball player, some of mine were taken early, the Larry Johnsons, the Kenya Martins of the world. So I'm going to try to go off the beaten path with a couple guys. Derek Anderson. He was at Kentucky. So smooth, so explosive. Chris Jackson, when he was at LSU, he was Wardell before Wardell. So, I mean, the stuff that he was doing. And last but not least is Mike Bibby. And for me, Mike Bibby being the sneaker dude that I was, he, in the 97 title game, introduced the world to these right here. Not Penny Hardaway, but this guy. And so that's one of the reasons that game always stands out to me, because we was like, what are those blue things on his feet? What is he wearing? And so he became one of my guys after that. But yeah, those are kind of some of my favorite players there.
All right, cool. Yeah, I love that tidbit about the sneaker there. I didn't know Bibby had a sneaker. He's of course one of the all-time great winners of college basketball. That team had a nice back-to-back run, and it's funny as we start queuing up for March Madness. I've already heard some talks like, UConn's not going to make it back again. It's really hard to repeat, and we're reminded here tonight of like how many teams do make it back to the Final Four. It's not as out of the realm as possible. Let's just, in the interest of time, I really want to keep this segment moving. Keep it to one player, your one favorite player, and then give us something that maybe we don't know about it, because I think that's the most intriguing part of this segment here. And after you go, if you could put your hand down, we're going to go to Alex. Great to see you, and then Jackie will be up next.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Alex. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. Dan, first one to talk. I'm glad to see another Midwesterner in the group here. And by the way, Dan, I love your voice. You sound like Ditka, man. You sound exactly like Ditka. Love that. My favorite player, I was going to say for Duke, JJ Redick, but my actual favorite player for the Badgers is Jordan Taylor. I'm not sure if people remember him. I think he's like a 6-time MVP in Europe, which seemingly all the Badgers just go to Europe because, they play the most fun style of basketball. They don't make the NBA. Fun story about, fun story. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm watching the game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was nice. I saw that dunk. Jordan Taylor. I'm going to take this group as a safe space to share this story, but Wisconsin upset Ohio State when they were number 1 with I think it was after Greg Odom, but then they upset them the next day with Terrell Pryor in football too. So basketball and football. And I was at Qdoba at 2:30 in the morning, pretty drunk, maybe a little, and partaking in a little other activities. And Jordan Taylor rolled out of his car, just absolutely stoned out of his mind, and he bought me a burrito from Qdoba. And the rest was history. And he was just, I will always be thankful for him. I actually saw him and shared the story again, drunk a few years later. Did not remember me, unfortunately.
But did you get a free burrito?
I should have asked. I was too polite, but I should have been like, can I have another burrito? That might have sparked his career and his 5 MVPs after he went to Europe. But that's a story I have.
Interesting. All right. I love the stories. That's the best part of that. The more we can get into the stories of these players, I think that makes this really fun. We got another timeout for an official review of a call right now. Duke's up 15 early.
It's turned into a blowout, man. It's ridiculous.
Miami needs to get their
getting pretty ugly.
Yeah, Miami needs to get their act together. I find it so interesting. People's favorite players like Redick, just like Leitner, is like one of the last people I would pick to be one of my Duke favorite players. And then, Wisconsin, you had the cool taco story. Before you told that, I was like, you got to say Kaminsky, right? I mean, he's like the Wisconsin legend.
He's the big dumb oaf, man. He was such a waste in the NBA. I don't even know.
And another bust for my Charlotte Hornets. Or
where the hell is he?
Bobcats?
Yeah, Bobcats.
And he had that signature win, though, right? He had that signature win. He got him to the finals.
They beat Kentucky.
He knocked out Calipari's dream team. Nobody.
That was I think all 5 of them on Kentucky all six people went to the NBA from that team.
Yeah,
Devin Booker, I think, right?
Yeah, but it was.
Do y'all see a lot of similarities between him and Filipowski?
Fuck no.
No,
Filipowski.
Okay.
Did you not just see his dunk? Frank can't fucking dunk. Are you kidding me?
Frank.
I don't know. To me, Filipowski's a poor man's Timmy, and we saw where that went in the NBA.
Yeah.
Nowhere.
No mustache.
Good
though.
Lord.
He doesn't have the mustache. It's the Timmy's mustache. That's what got him places.
All right, we're up to Jackie here. Where are you joining from? Who's your favorite college player, and what's something we maybe don't know about them?
My name is Jackie Jenkins Jr. from New Orleans, Louisiana. My favorite college player would have to be, I would say, Cheryl Miller. Y'all probably don't know this, but I was 2 years old when she won her second national championship, and it's like one of my first basketball memories ever. So every time I pick up a basketball, I just thought about Cheryl Miller. And then when Reggie Miller made to the league, I found out that she used to beat Reggie Miller all the time.
Oh, she was better than him.
This lady is like the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of women's basketball, and she's the reason we have a WNBA right now. You know what I mean? So it's just like she got to be the queen. She's the one for me.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just want to say that Tim Duncan is what the NBA wanted Christian Laettner to be. It just never worked out for him.
Right. He didn't have the talent.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Cheryl Miller thing, it was great seeing them on All-Star Weekend, and they were inducting Reggie Miller into the FIBA Hall of Fame, and Cheryl's already in the FIBA Hall of Fame and was there kind of congratulating her little brother.
She's Kareem.
Yeah, and and they give her spot, right? She's broadcasting right up there, with Reggie. So Awesome. Well, it's great to get introduced to everyone who's here. Miami just got a 3-point play to cut the lead down to 32-18. So, there's some
Game's
hope
over.
that they might be making a run here so far. So let's talk about this Duke team some more, as far as what we can expect from them going into March Madness. Let's have Ashley and Alex, if you guys could put the hands down, and then we'll have hands go back up again. If you want to give us a take on Duke overall, or if anything you're seeing in this game is changing your perspective. I know, Dan, you do a lot with the ACC. What are you at this point projecting for Duke overall for the going into the tournament? What are you thinking for them?
Yeah, they're a 3 seed right now. They've been, a top 20 team for majority of the season. I think, we'll see how they finish on the stretch here. They get to host North Carolina prior to their ACC tournament, but I think, to get past the first weekend is the expectations. Last year, they fell short to Tennessee. And I think, they didn't have Mark Mitchell for that game, and he's a big factor for them. Duke is going to have to really have their stars shine. They have one of the worst benches in the country in terms of minutes and points. So they're going to play their 6-7 rotational guys, and they're going to have to stay healthy, obviously, to get to that 2-3 seed. But right now they're just really chasing North Carolina for atop the ACC standings, and we'll see how those two squads prevail for the next under 4 weeks now before Selection Sunday. But Duke's pretty infirm, a lock to be no worse than probably a 4 or 5 seed, but looking good to stay firm right now. I got them in my top 12 seed lines for the S curve. So, another chance to get this is only a quad 2 victory at Miami because they're outside the top 75 in the net. And if you get a road win over a top 75 team, that would quantify as a quad 1 win. Miami's just outside that. They've been, the biggest bust in the ACC, obviously, and nationally they've been up there. They had a magical run last year. So Miami's going to need a miracle probably in Brooklyn for the ACC tournament. But Duke, it's always high expectations. You wouldn't jump off the garage like you were sounding like earlier when you said if John Shire and the Dukies lose again, is it the end of an era? Or, it's hard to be completely dominant all the time. College basketball, one of the hardest things to do in sports is get past the first weekend. So I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. I think they'll probably get past that first weekend, but it's hard to compete consistently for national championships. But with the ACC the way it is, assuming these teams stay for a bit here, I think they'll be all right. And kind of their ranking in the top 10 for most of the season, their future is pretty bright. I wouldn't say they're my top 5 or 6 teams, but for that next list, they're pretty close to the top. So decent confidence to get past the opening weekend if they get a good draw and stay healthy. But I wouldn't say they're a very confident team to make a deep run into the Final Four. So you can make a case for maybe Carolina for ACC standards, but outside your big 5 or 6 teams, which right now is really Arizona. You can put them in any order you want, but UConn, Purdue, Arizona, Houston, and then you could probably throw in Tennessee, North Carolina as your top 6 teams up to this point. For most bracketologists, those are your top 6. Some may, tinker the order a little bit, but for the most part, the committee had that, and most bracketologists as well. You can see that on Bracket Matrix. But those are the top 6, and there's a good chance 4 of those 6 will be 1 seeds. But for Duke's case, they're going to have to potentially win out to get a 1 seed. The ones are pretty much locked up, and Tennessee, North Carolina outside shot. If they can stay strong, they can potentially unseat a team like Arizona, maybe Houston. But Duke, yeah, they've been a top 20 team all year. It was kind of disappointing last year to really look dreadful against Tennessee. So the physicality, Duke, doesn't rely on the 3 ball. Their weakness is their bench. And I would just say overall toughness. Filipowski hasn't had quite the year. Really, Jared McCain's been their best player the last couple of weeks. He's been insane. Roach has been solid. The guy that's been a bust besides Flip, though, is Tyrese Proctor. He looked like a perennial all ACC star last year, and he's been anything but.
What? I thought that guy was scared to shoot last year. He looked like he didn't want the ball at all.
He was one of their better playmakers last year. If you look at the numbers, and
as a playmaker, but he wasn't really shooting at all.
No, he's improved there, but he was more of a point guard. So as you know, like that guard wing combo, he has good size, 6'5" plus. As a distributor, he's not a superstar by any means, but he was getting first round buzz. Came back, and now people are realizing, he's probably not anything special. Maybe a late first rounder, but but still Duke's a solid 5-6 team. Lack of bench. We'll see how they do, but I got them as a 3 seed right now.
So let's hop back over to our game cast here and just check in. It's now 35-18. If you're watching on ESPN, the game cast is just a few clicks behind us here. Man, if you picked Duke minus the spread, you're looking like a smart move at this point. I've seen Duke play twice this year. I haven't researched anything yet. I don't really turn that up till right before the tournament, which will be next week. We'll be all going into our research together, which will be fun. But I saw Duke lose to UNC earlier this year. I mean, that's a great rivalry game. And then I saw them lose at home to Pitt this year. And I'm like, man, this team looks like they barely belong in the top 20. I was surprised. Then I pulled up the rankings. I'm like, oh, they're actually ahead of UNC right now.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen them beat anybody good. Do they have any quality wins?
Yeah, they beat Baylor early in the season. The ACC
Baylor's barely ranked now.
ACC sucks.
Yeah,
when they lost to Pitt, they did not have Jeremy
It's 20
Roach,
points,
so
man.
they started a guy that I think might have started one game in his career.
I think the past 10 years we owned the Big Ten, but when we had the little tournament,
hey, we're
Big
not
Ten
talking
ACC.
about the past 10 years. We're talking about 2024, aren't we?
ACC is the dominant basketball conference.
I'll take the Mountain West over the ACC this year.
They're going to get more teams.
I will take Caitlin Clark over the ACC this year.
Yeah, but with Duke's ball,
honestly, ACC women is probably better than ACC men. Honestly, the best conference is SEC country. SEC country.
But Duke
just to be fair, and
we're talking basketball. We're talking basketball here.
Duke was missing Mark Mitchell and Jeremy Roach when they lost to Pitt.
All right, so let's do. Dan said something in his take that caught my ear that I want to get all of your takes on, because he said, and obviously this guy knows his stuff, right? But he said it's very hard to consistently compete for a national title, and I want to hear from you guys. What's the team you think that's the expectation? Because I would say for Duke, that is the expectation. If you're not competing for the national title, you're losing. And only one team each, right? Don't steal the thunder from each other. I want to give everyone a chance to chime in here. Who are the teams that it's national title or bust when it comes to college hoops? Jackie, who would you say? You had your hand up.
It's North Carolina all the time. It's like Michael Jordan went there, and everybody wants to go play there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I would agree with that. UNC. Let's go to Trip next. Who else? National title or bust?
I think there's a couple of schools.
Just give us one.
I'll say Kentucky.
I would totally agree. Kentucky, national title or bust. So Jason, who else? National title or bust?
Tar Heels, of course. It's a standard, man. Blue blood, man. You have to. If you go to Carolina, you have to expect to win the championship.
So we got Duke, Tar Heels, and Kentucky so far. If that was going to be your answer, go ahead and put your hand down. Who else you think? Bobby, give us one.
I'm in Kansas City, so it's KU, and I don't have to say anything else.
Boom. How are they not number one, right?
Okay.
Right? I mean, these Tar Heel fans love to forget where Dean came from, right? He came from Kansas. Wilt came from Kansas. Let's get the Kansas fans going. Jordan, who else is competing for its national title or bust?
Honestly, right now, Connecticut, because recently they've been winning titles, and it's really time for us.
A good answer, right? I think anything less than that, although they did win last year, so their appetite should be good. I'm not saying fire Hurley if he doesn't win this year. I was scared to pick UConn last year because Hurley had lost in he never won an NCAA game, and that's one of the things I usually look for is some experience, but apparently that's not a good criteria. What about you, Alex? Who else is national title or bust?
It's got to be Purdue. They just pump in freaking 7'5" guys now, and it's just it's super annoying, and it's just I hate it.
I think for this team, for sure, it is national title or bust, especially after last year's exit. Although I think a Final Four would make them happy. All right, did we get it? Anybody else have another team that is?
I got another one. I got another one though. We need to put in USC. You can't get Billy Goat James Kidd and not beat
USC, I mean, they're not historically national title or bust.
Oh,
He's
they're
coming off the
terrible.
bench.
But they've got the top, like one of the top 3 recruiting classes in the nation. So when
Yeah,
you can
all the
convert that
time.
much talent, yeah, all the time. So you get that much talent. What
Ronnie's gonna transfer.
Everybody
I'm a
talking
Gator.
about Juju. The girl.
All right,
Everybody talking about Juju.
let's hear
rather than
from
Bryant.
Dan V. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, nobody's mentioned Houston yet. I mean, they've got one Final Four appearance under their coach right now. Tennessee, no Final Fours ever. So
nobody expects nothing from either one of those teams, man. They're just happy to see
with
them
all
in
the
the
hype
tournament.
around
the betting
Cole
world.
Connect and that Tennessee team, I don't see why somebody wouldn't think that they can make a really deep run this year either.
Well, I'm talking about like the teams that are consistently national title or bust. Does the SETC really have a team like that? I don't know if they do. Maybe they're a football. Let's hear from Jonas.
Just really quickly, I'm a Gator, and we are always expected to win. So when I mean, like you were going over like who's your favorite player, and I was thinking my favorite team was the mid 2000s when we went back to back and won some national championships. But like, Florida athletics, it's serious. So and I'm in Gainesville right now. I can't believe it. I'm back in Gainesville, but we are always expected to go and win, even if maybe the other country, the rest of the country might not think so. We're expected to win the Final Four.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Gators fans. Although that was a long time ago, that team that
I know Billy Donovan, baby.
You guys
Are
should
they
bring
gonna
him
make
back.
the tournament even? Are they gonna make the tournament even?
Hey, they're 24th, I think. Come on. Let's
Well, I know they
about
get
that.
a lot of hype now because Shaquille O'Neal's daughter is actually going to Florida next year.
what I'm talking
For
about.
basketball.
Ooh, that's interesting.
She ain't going to LSU, man. What is she doing?
No, she's going to Florida. I was so surprised. That money. They must have gave her some good money.
Our game is at halftime here. If anybody has
Halftime, guys.
takes on what is happening in this game here, let's have you go ahead and use the Zoom raise of hand. Let's pause this commercial here. I thought it'd be, kind of interesting just to look at these teams a little closer. Miami really had one of the great runs last year to knock off Houston and Texas. Those were 2 of the most popular picks. And then, they ran into UConn and couldn't get any further. And I was looking at this box score, who was really carrying them last year. I remember Isaiah Wong, right? He was ACC Player of the Year, and he's gone on to the NBA now. Jordan Miller had that game. Remember, he didn't miss a shot in this game, like didn't miss a free throw or a field goal. The guy played out of his mind. I'd never heard of him before that game, to be honest. I only knew about Wong and Pack. And so he's gone on to the NBA now. Nigel Pack is back, but not playing tonight. I don't really know much about these other guys. I remember they had a big bruiser hustle guy on their squad last year as well. But so that was Miami's run last year. Hopefully they can get it together. I thought it'd be interesting to look at Jordan Miller. He was one of their best players last year. He's gone on to the Clippers now, 2nd round pick. I don't know if anybody has any takes on him, if we have any Clippers fans here. Isaiah Wong went on. He's playing for the Pacers now. Had a great college run. And then Nigel Pack is really the only guy who's back. I think he was a transfer portal guy from last year. Duke last year, if we were to look at what they did last year, they really underachieved last year. I mean, I guess since when is 32-7 an underachieving team, but they were expecting a lot more. A lot of people picked them in the Final Four. And they got knocked out. I think they're still really bitter about losing to UNC in the tournament game the year before. So it's been a lot of letdowns here at Duke. Hopefully they'll right the ship this year. This is Duke, just looking at their roster here, right? They lost Whitehead and Lively, were 1st round picks. And they always seem to reload with some freshmen, and had as far as who they had back, it was Filipkowski, Proctor and Roach, right? Were the 3 guys I can remember from last year. I miss the days when all the teams were returning their starting 5 back when like the Gators and Larry Johnson and them all came back. We're
gonna start to get more of that now with the Neal deals, man.
Yeah, but now they're transferring all around.
That too. That too.
So while we're at halftime here, I thought it'd be fun to get some takes on Duke and Miami. Those are our two teams that are playing tonight. I pulled this up to kind of refresh my memory on how awesome Duke has been under Coach K. I'd love to get your takes on the most memorable moment in Duke basketball, and then we're going to go around and do Miami after this, so our college football fans maybe have something to chime in. For Miami, you can talk basketball or football, but Duke has so many historic memories. It'd be fun to kind of go back through some of those. If you want to use the Zoom raise of hand to comment on this, love to get your take on what the most memorable moment in Duke basketball was. We'll go first to Jackie, and then Christian, and then Jason. Go ahead, Jackie.
All right, two things. First off, your memory is obvious, man. The Grant Hill pass, the pass, Christian Laettner, the Grant Hill pass is probably the most memorable thing for Duke in like history ever. It's just
all right,
thing,
yeah.
You know
and let's all just keep it to one play so that we don't steal anyone else's thunder.
Oh, I just want to talk about the game halftime real quick.
Yeah, if anybody has takes on this game, would love to get those too.
I just want to talk about how I expected Omar to be like to shut down Philip. What is it, Philip Pulowski? How do you say number 30? Yeah, but like he's so focused over there. You got the other four scoring all the points, and that's the matchup. They're winning the matchup that I wanted them to win, but now they're getting blown out because they didn't got enough players, man. McCants and Philip Pulowski can take Duke through the tournament because they got the two players that you need. You need a scorer who can handle the ball on his own, and you need a big man. And right now, college basketball don't have too many standouts at these positions. So you got the perfect combination to kind of whip through the tournament, especially with no superstars.
Yeah, that's a good point. They got those two scoring forwards, and then their backcourt's back from last year, so they got an experienced backcourt in there as well. You're making me reconsider them. I know I don't feel confident taking them beyond the Sweet 16 at this point. Obviously, you got to look at the matchups. It's way too early, but I don't feel a lot of confidence in them yet. But I put a lot of weight in conference tournaments, so let's wait and see who gets hot in the conference tournament. By the way, then one of the topics I want to be sure to cover tonight is what's the criteria you look at when you make your March Madness brackets? Like, what kinds of things do you look at, or do you just go by feel and you know who's hot? We'll finish on this topic. Right now we're doing Duke memories, then Miami memories, then we're going to get into selection criteria. It'd be interesting to hear from this crowd. All right, Christian, what is your most memorable Duke memory?
Most memorable for me was right when I started like really getting into watching and analyzing basketball back in 2001 as a little kid when they were playing Arizona for the national championship. That's arguably my favorite Duke team: Chris Duhon, Shane Battier, Carlos Boozer, and you know, with the talent and the expectation that Duke had going into that season and into March Madness, I just thought that they dominated and they proved that they were who they were. Had a lot of NBA draft talent on that team as well.
I'm trying to find that one on here. I don't know which one it was. One NCAA title. It would have been this one,
that
right?
one, yeah.
The 01 team that won the NCAA title. That was a Jay Williams team too, right?
Yes, there was.
He played with Battier.
Jay Williams, yep, Chris Duhon, Battier, Boozer.
Yeah. Yep. And then those guys all came back the next year. Well, Boozer was gone. They replaced him with Elton Brand and had that amazing run, right? And then lost to UConn.
Yep.
Jay Williams is the Reggie Bush of basketball, okay?
I don't know about that. I get it from a Saints fan. Like they both had the same lack of
the great college career. They go to the league and
Reggie Bush had a 10 touchdown season in my fantasy team one year way back then.
No, he had a 1,000-yard season once he left the Saints, man.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't a total Jay Williams though. I mean, he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah, he just was out of there. You're right.
He got injured. He had the motorcycle accident, and then he
that motor.
That's what I was about to say. That's why a lot of people that said like don't ride motorcycles. They
Which
permitted him
that's
to
what
go
took Bobby
so many
Hurley
people
out was a
hurt.
car accident. So it's kind of maybe a Duke curse in there. Because Hurley, I think would have been so interesting as an NBA player. He doesn't have the body type for it. But he was so productive in college. I was surprised even as a fan that he went, top 10. Yeah, and would have been fun cheering for him and Jay Will even more. Wow. All right, let's go next to Jason. Let's all try to use a different moment if from what's been said already and just keep it to one. Jason, what's your most memorable Duke moment?
Oh, the most memorable one. When we let's see. We hung that last L for Coach K. We gave it to him. The most memorable. We hung that last L for him.
Yeah, I bet that hurt more than losing that national championship team with Elton Brand, because it was UNC. I mean, that knocked him out. That was supposed to be Coach K's dream, go off a winner, like Elway and so few have ever done. I don't know if anyone's ever done that in college coaching, walked away a winner like that, right? Saban came pretty close. And you guys really spoiled it for them.
It was, man.
Came out of nowhere to
Duke,
do
and
it.
then the Final Four. That was it.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most painful Duke memory. Of course, there was the years that Coach K didn't coach and they sucked. That was pretty painful too. Awesome. All right, let's go to Jordan and then Trip. What's the most memorable Duke memory?
My most memorable Duke memory was actually Coach K's last championship. I know somebody on here is like a Badgers fan when they beat
Oh shit! Don't even
Wisconsin.
remind me.
And let's be honest, everybody was so hype on Wisconsin. They was like, oh my God, Wisconsin gonna win. Oh my God, Frank Kaminsky.
Everybody
Oh my
wanted
God,
them to win.
Sam Tucker. And then look, here it is, Duke.
The refs.
Duke with Jaleel Okafor, Quinn Cook, Tyus Jones. Comment in and be like, no, this is Blue Bloods.
Justice Winslow too.
Yeah, so that would have been 2015, right? That was that year. That was a great Final Four.
Oh, it was beautiful.
I forget the big guy's name, man. I was so disappointed he was such a bust in the NBA.
Jaleel Okafor, I was a fan of him.
Oh, he was bad,
and
yeah.
he actually did well at the 76ers. It's just, I think he just came in the wrong time period.
Did he?
If he came into
some guys get their millions and they check out, right? I mean, what would you do if somebody handed you 10 million? Keep busting your ass every day? I don't know. It's a fair question.
Trying to get more than 10 million.
Right. Was the ball for all the Duke fans? The ball was off of Justice Winslow's fingertips, and the refs. Krzyzewski makes a deal with the goddamn devil every year.
The Blue Devils, right?
Yes.
I'm surprised with this woke society now. Nobody's calling for them to change their name at all, but.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Watch. They're going by one by one. They already talking about Kansas City Chiefs.
He looks like the mascot. Krzyzewski looks like the mascot, which is great. So perfect. It was perfect.
All right. This is a lot of fun here. Trip, what's your most memorable Duke memory?
First of all, Coach K is still a GOAT coach. Whatever y'all say, he's still a GOAT coach. But I think the biggest memory is actually the J. Will missed free throws. I feel like I saw that clip more times than I saw the Christian Laettner shot to win the game.
Yeah, so J. Will, right? That's when they lost to UConn? Am I thinking the right one or no? That's a different team. But you're talking about in the national title game? Because J. Will, that whole team came back trying to repeat, right?
Yeah, when he missed the two free throws that could have sealed the game for them.
They got knocked out.
They lost to Indiana, Sweet 16.
Indiana. Oof.
It was at game was at Rupp Arena.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Jay Will, I was glad to see them all come back and try to win again. I love when teams, stay together and do that. And usually root for them, no matter who they are, to do that. Just like I've been rooting for Gonzaga all these years with those guys coming back. All right, Trip. Good painful memory there for Duke. By the way, if you're watching us, if you're watching the Duke Miami game on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, it's halftime right now. We'll have the game cast back on as soon as it starts back up. I just dropped the Zoom link in there if you want to hop up on Zoom and join us. We're going to be going until 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. We're here every night, 7 to 10 p.m. And tomorrow night, we have an NBA doubleheader. We're going to do the early game, which is I think Suns Mavericks.
Ooh, Pelicans, man, Pelicans. But y'all can't watch it because y'all ain't got Valley
whatever the
Sports.
game is, they're televised on ESPN or TNT is what we show. And then we're gonna stay on. I'm gonna do a doubleheader because we have some West Coast guys for Golden State Lakers tomorrow night. That tips at
That should be a good game.
so
Billy Goat might not play though.
Yeah. If LeBron doesn't play, that's not going to be as exciting anymore.
No.
All right, let's go next to Drew. Drew, what's your most memorable Duke memory?
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is my first time being here, so I just want to introduce myself. I'm Drew. I'm from the dirty South, Georgia. My favorite teams are the Falcons and the Hawks. But to answer the question,
Don't say Falcons. Oh, come on,
yes,
man.
sir. My boy Jackie, yes, sir. That one was for you. That one was for you. But my favorite memory of Duke is when Austin Rivers hit that game winner against UNC in that rivalry game. That was real hype. Like I remember watching that from my couch. I got up, just started yelling everywhere, like I hit the shot. But
Didn't like that at all.
Yeah, I feel like we could do a whole show
UNC fan, I hate to see it.
Of Duke versus UNC, like greatest moments in those games. It's definitely the greatest rivalry of all time in sports. I love. We got to get some of our Buckeye fans on here because they hate when I start telling them that Duke UNC is a bigger rivalry than their thing. But
it's not.
It's definitely
Michigan.
It definitely is, though. It definitely is.
Will never.
It's
That'll
not.
never be better.
It's two
than
different
Duke,
sports,
Carolina.
but
They
it
will
definitely
never.
is.
Yeah, I got Duke on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have both teams winning for it to be a rivalry, right? And Michigan's dominated recent years, and then they had a 10-year losing span. So I don't see how that's even in the conversation.
We've been playing football since the 1900s. Okay, basketball's newer, so it's definitely Michigan, Ohio State. Who do we hate? Ohio State.
Hey, those fans deserve it, man. I never seen guys get so upset when their team loses compared to Ohio State fans.
When we won the championship, I cried. I mean, and I'm a grown man. I'm almost 50.
Well, it's a great year for Michigan Detroit fans. Enjoy it while you can, because I think the sanctions are coming and the Lions of peaked.
Oh yeah, it's over for a while, but hey, we got it. So we'll take it.
Let's go next to Dan Schreiber. What's your best Duke memory?
I know he's controversial. I would say back in 1992 when Christian Laettner did the turnaround jump shot and when Duke defeated North Carolina.
Yeah, Duke. Laettner hit a last-minute shot. There's the one when he beat Kentucky in the tournament. The previous year, he beat UConn in the tournament. Laettner, man, he had a lot of big shots in there. So those are definitely memorable moments. Our games just tipped back off underway at halftime here. It's still 40-23. I took Miami plus the points at home, so I'm hoping they're going to have a halftime speech and come out with a run here. Let's continue to take shares here. Let's go to Bobby Sanders, and then we'll close out with Dan V on Duke memories. And then if anybody wants to come in the queue and share a Miami memory, since that's our other featured team here tonight, it can be Miami football or basketball, whatever the most memorable Miami minute was. If you don't have a Miami sports story, you can just tell a Miami vacation memorable moment.
Oh, God.
All right, Bobby, what's your Duke memory?
Well, I was still a kid. I remember when Jeff Capel, he hit that last second 3-pointer to take that game against North Carolina in the overtime. And Yeah, that was a great game. And UNC still ended up winning. But that just always stuck with me. That was just a great game to watch.
Yeah, Jeff Capel is one of those
Yeah.
names who's like a legend in Duke basketball. He's coaching now, right?
Yes.
I feel like there's so many good people out there that are Duke alumni that are coaches that maybe should have got the Duke job instead of Shire. A lot of people think he's like a puppet, and Coach K still pulling the strings there. I guess we'll see and save that for another day. DMV, what's your we got out of what's left? What's your most memorable Duke memories?
Oh yeah, so many good ones still that we talk. We've been kind of get criticized in negatives. I'll end on a positive note. The NCAA tournament, you were talking about that as well. It's kind of like life in general, expect unexpected. So the NCAA tournament's often about adversity and overcoming that. In 2001, Duke actually had a lot of adversity that season. They had a great comeback against Maryland. I won't choose that 10-point comeback in the final minute, but since I'm the last one here, I'll throw that one in. But honestly, the Final Four, it was in Minnesota against Maryland. So they came back from a 22-point deficit. It's still the all-time largest, I believe, greatest comeback in Final Four history. To put it frank, I mean, you come back from 22, you are dead and buried and gone. Next year is already starting. That's how these kids think. So to come back from 22 points is remarkable. I mean, I thought
that was the game against Kentucky, right? I think
no, against Maryland.
Against Maryland.
Wojo Maryland, I believe, 4 times that year, and every game, all 4, were probably better than most games you can watch in your lifetime. That's how good they were. It wasn't. I don't recall any of those. Yeah, all 4 were remarkable.
Slapping the floor, playing defense. I'm like, these guys are not giving up, man. Like,
yeah. The Duke team was loaded, and of course that it propelled Maryland. Talk about adversity. Maryland blew that 22-point lead. They came back and won the Natty the following year with Gary Williams, and of course Duke ended up beating Arizona, and that was actually preseason number 1 versus number 2, Duke and Zona. That had the only time that's happened since was a couple years ago. Baylor and Gonzaga played in the national title. They were both preseason number 1, number 2. Actually, they were preseason number 1s in each poll, coaches and AP. So it tells you how hard it is to get chalk. I feel like that's also 2001, the last time I accurately predict all Final Four teams going in my bracket, and I was like 11. So it tells you. I guess I knew more back then.
You were 11 back then?
I think so. I think maybe 13. Maybe it was 01. So yeah, I think 13. But yeah, I got my birthday always around the Final Four, so it's the best time of the year. But yeah, that Duke comeback from Maryland was pretty remarkable. So I'd go with that one.
Awesome. Yeah, I love hearing these stories. Duke, and just like sports has been there, so much for us throughout our lives. You guys touched on a lot of the really good ones. I'm going to pick a few that you maybe that we haven't touched on yet. I'm going to go back to the Duke first Final Four versus Louisville. Duke was heavily favored. They got upset by Louisville in the 80s. It was, I think, early 80s. And the reason that game was memorable, it was the first time ESPN was really involved in the March Madness. And for me as a kid, I'm like, this is amazing. Like every game's on ESPN. Duke had Johnny Dawkins, and it was the first time I ever heard of Coach K, and I was still a kid in the 80s. A lot of you guys maybe weren't around or alive for that. And so, the tie-in at ESPN really made that memorable for me, sticking in my head. But I want to go also and point out what I think was Coach K's best coaching job of all time. Was very memorable for me. It was his second to last national title team. It was the team that Shire played on. There really was no NBA talent on that team. It was a very unexpected run. It was Shire. Oh man, I can't even remember the other guys' names off the top of my head.
Nolan Smith.
Yeah, Smith was on it, and the tall guy made it to the NBA, but really didn't last much. Was kind of like a Larry Bird type guy.
Kyle Singler.
Yeah, Singler. Yep, there we go. You're
Singler,
great.
Yeah.
So that team was 2 things that made it so memorable to me, that it came out of nowhere. And really what made it memorable was they almost lost. Gordon Hayward took a half-court shot and almost beat them. And that was the first time I ever heard of Brad Stevens. And I'm like, who the heck is this guy? Like I seen him, in that game, like going toe to toe with Krzyzewski, and one of my I'm big into high school officiating. I remember one of my mentors like breaking down that game. He's like, I never seen somebody coach toe to toe with Coach K like Brad Stevens was, and I was like, really? Like, wow. And then, of course, they would go back to the finals the next year under Stevens, and my Celtics would hire Stevens. So that really introduced Brad Stevens to me. I'm glad the Celtics have brought him on board. And the other thing that is memorable about that season was all those guys came back the next year, and Kyrie Irving was on that team. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Duke is going to repeat with Kyrie. Of course, Kyrie got hurt.
He was injured. Yeah.
He did come back. He came back for the tournament. I still picked them, and that was the year they got knocked out really early. I think that was maybe CJ McConnell's team that knocked them out early. They got knocked out really early that year, even though they were defending champs. It shows you how
they had the Plumlee brothers, didn't they, that year?
Yeah. Lehigh.
Yeah, the Plumlee brothers. I mean, I was surprised those guys made the pros and have stuck around.
Right, so long too.
Zona beat them Sweet 16 that year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they got housed by Derek Williams had like 30 something. It was all, I think, Sweet 16. They were a 1 seed, and they just got absolutely. Kyrie dropped like 26 off the bench or something, and they just got absolutely torched by Arizona, who then lost to UConn, who of course won it all that year.
Wow. All right. So that was a fun trip down memory lane for Duke. Let's do the same thing for Miami here. It's funny, when I was thinking of last night, we talked about most hated teams in sports, and the Hurricanes were kind of like, we all forgot about them, but like, I hated Hurricanes fans, especially living in Florida. When I moved to Florida like 20 years ago, everyone would ask me, which one of the big three are you cheering for? And I'm like, not Miami, because you guys are like the worst fans of all time. And then of course I met some Gators fans, and
do you remember the Brock Berlin thing? When that's the one thing I remember, was he was playing for UF for the first 2 years, and he wasn't getting play time, so he left and went to Miami. And then we were playing him, and he was playing against us, and we were up like 33-10, and we were crushing him. And then all of a sudden he got hot, and they beat us like 38-33. He started taunting the Gator fans. This was a guy that played for us. So we were all so angry, and I could totally understand why you don't like Miami fans. They do. They got that arrogance to them, that snottiness.
Yeah. Well, I bet you're going to have some more. Let's go around the horn here. As far as, and I think Dan's lost it on us. That's all right. Let's go to Christian. What's your most memorable moment of Miami sports? Football, basketball, or just weekends in Miami?
Although I could definitely go with weekends in Miami, I'm going to stick with football here. And I know this is probably going to make a lot of hands go down, but 2001, when Eric Crouch was the Heisman winner from Nebraska, I just thought that the way that defense dominated him in that option offense, which you have to be as a defensive guy, got to be disciplined. And I don't think there was a more disciplined team than that Miami defense that year. I mean, obviously having Ed Reed, Jonathan Vilma, and some of the guys that they had definitely didn't hurt. Not to mention, the offensive side of the ball with Jeremy Shockey, Clinton Portis. I mean, they were absolutely loaded. But I liked seeing them stop Eric Crouch. I thought that he was overrated tremendously anyways.
Those were some great Miami teams. I was rooting against Miami in those games just for the underdog and not seeing the thugs keep winning. But
you couldn't root against Cocaine Country, man.
Jackie, what's your most memorable Miami sports moment? Miami Hurricane.
I gotta say, it was in the 80s. It was like 87, I think 88. It was like the Michael Irvin catch. I remember this because this is why I wanted to play wide receiver, even though Jerry Rice is my GOAT. Like it was like third down or something, and they needed a first down. And they throw the ball to Michael Irvin, and he take it like 70, 80 yards for a touchdown. Like this catch and this touchdown got them into the national championship. It got them a national championship, and it got Steve Walsh into the NFL. And I'm like, man, like, how did he do that? But he did it. They only needed a first down. It was a touchdown. It was like the greatest thing I ever seen. And I wanted to go do that all the time. It just never happened that way. Everybody started eating McDonald's and got faster and bigger than me, so I had to give it up.
I love any Michael Irvin reference is a great one. He's one of the all-time college football greatest. Duke's up 20 now.
Yeah, this game is not watchable.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, we might have to find a filling game here. Oof, and
Bama and Florida are going at it right now.
The bench is in and raining down threes. We missed a brawl last night, by the way, in the Texas A&M game.
Oh yeah, did you see that? 8 people got suspended, man.
That was the game we were watching last night, and I need to get a take on that later if anybody has any. But let's continue with our Miami takes. These are more entertaining than the Miami team is showing up tonight. All right,
playing Bama.
Let's go to Jordan and then Yolanda. Jordan, what's your most memorable Miami Hurricanes?
All right, I'm gonna stick with basketball because you already know the greatest football coach on like Cowboys history. You know, Jimmy Johnson. I ain't going to talk about that. I ain't going to talk about that. But I'm gonna talk about this name, Jack McClellan III, Baltimore City. The way he was a sharp shooter. I just remember back in like 2009 when he was actually playing Duke University, where he like shot over like 2 or 3 people at the 3-point line to like force it to go to overtime. I was like, bro, like this dude was a baller. Like if y'all want to look him up, like look him up. Jack McClellan III. This dude was a hooper. Like he was like any shot he put up, he'll make.
I'm Googling it right now because it's a name I don't remember, but that doesn't surprise me. So I appreciate you bringing us that throwback.
Anybody named Jack got a jump shot, man. That's
and he from Baltimore City. You know, Baltimore City, we always come up with ballers. You know, Baltimore City, we always got the ballers out here.
Let's go to Yolanda and then Dan B. Yolanda, what's your most memorable Miami Hurricanes memory?
Well, you said that we could give that memory or a memory of a weekend.
Yeah, so, that's true.
I will take the weekend, and I will tell other people this, but not mine. But I'm just giving out a little tidbit of advice. If you do a Miami weekend, go with people, like-minded people, because when we went to a girls' trip for Miami weekend, people had Cristal Taste and Mad Dog 2020 budgets, and that just doesn't work in South Beach. So make sure everybody is correct when it comes to counting their pockets. And that's my take on a weekend in South Beach. Leave the Mad Dog 2020 budgets where they was at, they house. Thank you.
I don't know, Mad Dog 2020 was the start for a lot of us, man.
Good advice for Miami. I live in Tampa to visit South Florida often, but I try to avoid Miami at all costs. I always run into 3 kind of people down there, and I don't fit in with any of them. You got the Spanish people that don't speak English. You got the retired people, and then the naked people. And I'm like, all 3 of these groups, it's like, where do I go? And especially if you're driving my Uber, I don't want any of those 3 people driving my car, getting me around. I'm scared to drive in Miami. All right, Dan, what do you got for Miami? Any Miami hoops throwbacks, or feel free to do a football one?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much great history of hoops. I mean, I guess Jack McClellan was a stud. He only won 1 tournament game. Unfortunately, they just haven't had much success. I'll stay on the gridiron. Got to be some positive here. I'll go with the 2003 national championship game on Miami and Ohio State. Uh, they should have been going for the three-peat because if you remember 2 years prior, it was actually Florida State, Oklahoma. Despite beating Florida State got the edge, and they lost Oklahoma 13-2. But in the Canes crushed the Gators in the Sugar Bowl, and then the following year, of course, they won the Natty over Nebraska. And then, long story short, the game against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl was, for me, probably a top 5 game I've seen for national championships, probably in the last quarter century. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the end, unfortunately, because actually Ken Dorsey did return the following season, and they did finish in the top 10, I believe it was. But that's the last time that Miami football has finished a season in the AP top 10. It was 2003, I believe. So it just goes to show that, when you lose coaches, lose players, it's hard to maintain that. But the game against Ohio State was, for me, one of the greatest games that I've ever seen for national championship, because it looked like Ohio State lost. It looked like Miami was going to celebrate, and then the flag in the corner of the end zone. There's so much happened. You could write a book on that. Obviously, they did 30 for 30 on it, but the McGahee injury, the tight ends. There were superstars everywhere, left and right. It was an epic game. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way that the Canes would like it, but those were amazing times, and unfortunately, they're still kind of searching for similar, good pastime, good current history they'd love. But that stood out to me.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as probably mine from Miami Hurricanes football. And it's funny, I can't remember much of the game, but I remember that ending, right? It was the Canes versus Ohio State. It's a national title. And there was like a really bad pass.
It was a 4th down in the corner of the pylon. So I'm just throwing a little jump ball the corner of the pylon. And I think it was the two-way player for Ohio State, Chris Gamble. He kind of it could have been passed on, but they called it. Might have been the right call, unless you ask a Canes fan, of course. And the referee threw it basically as everybody was rushing the football field because the game was over. And they won the title. And wait, we got a flag on the field. We have a pass interference, 1st and goal at the goal line, touchdown. We played for another half hour. And of course, eventually the defensive pressure from Ohio State and just their ability to win at the line of scrimmage kind of prevailed them in that game. Of course, Miami at the line of scrimmage has been pretty Hootsa pretty much since, unfortunately, since the 03, 04 kind of end of an era. But that was a great game.
Wow, yeah, a lot of memories in that game. I forget, did you say it was McGahee or Ed?
McGahee, yeah, his knee. Yeah, it was unfortunate. So much happened. Maurice Clarett stripped the ball on a play that the Buckeyes turned it over. Everything that needed to go Ohio State's way to pretty much win the game happened to win their game. They played their A+ game. Miami probably played their B+ game. Plus, it required McGahee to get hurt and Miami to really kind of get some bad luck, karma, if you will, in that overtime.
I think it's worth looking at this roster of the game Dan's talking about because it's considered the best college football team of all time by far. If anybody wants to give a take on another roster, I'd love to hear it. But let's just pull this up here since Miami is getting killed in the Duke game. We'll play a little tribute to them. So here's this team here, right? McGahee, of course. Davenport was a pro. Andre Johnson, Hall of Fame.
Going to the Hall of Fame.
Right, Dorsey,
winner.
Gore as your third string.
Portis, Frank Gore. Come on.
And Jared Payton played in that overtime game.
Oh my gosh. Vernon Carey, I've heard of, right?
Jeremy Shockey.
Shockey. Look at the tight ends on this team. The tight ends are Kellen Winslow, Jeremy Shockey.
Roscoe Parrish was good.
Ed Reed was on that team.
Yeah,
Ed Reed was on that team, right?
Who that?
Andre Roll, right? He's an all-pro. Ed Reed.
Yeah.
John Taylor.
Ed Reed's from my neighborhood, man.
That's my dude. Sean Taylor, R.E.P.
Vince Wilfork was good.
Buchanan was a long-time pro.
Vince Wilfork as a freshman.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This team's just insane.
Chris Campbell. Wow.
Right.
But when you think about it, though, we talked about this earlier from a basketball perspective of who's national championship or bust. There is no more talent in any state than the state of Florida. And when you talk about in-state recruiting, every school in Florida, well, minus, I guess, FSU this year, has failed tremendously. When you have that much talent in your backyard, You just saw the product of what you do when you lock down your home state. And I don't know what's going on now with.
I think I disagree with you. I think Texas might give them a run for their money too, far as talent, but
Not when you have high schools that your determination of if you play a skills position or not is if you can catch a jackrabbit. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that story, but there is a school that has produced more NFL players than any other high school. And their criteria for either line or skill is if you can catch a rabbit in a very closed spot. So,
like
Rock,
maybe
you
for college football, like Florida got the talent, but I don't know about what like for overall all like sports.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I referee high school football in Hillsborough County, right? Tampa, a lot of teams. Michael Penix came out of Hillsborough County. I had some of his games back in the day. There's definitely a lot of talent in state, but nowadays, the coaches, the NIL deals, all these things you got to be embracing. And I think that's where the Florida teams are kind of falling behind and need to get up to speed on. It's a real window of opportunity, for the coaches that got in on NIL early. It kind of reminds me of people that are getting in on AI early in their careers, right? Which, by the way, if you didn't see our guest speaker last week, he was a best-selling author on AI. He was giving away his book. We can provide some resources for that. He's somebody we're trying to lock in as a sponsor for the show. Because imagine us being able to put into AI, hey, write me a take on Miami Hurricanes basketball and now make it funny, right? And now make it outrageous, right? And boom, it takes our thought, compiles it into and make sure it doesn't go over 60 seconds because that's all my reel can be. That's some of the stuff I'm working with the AI expert to bring into our show here to kind of next level the stuff that we're doing. That's going to be a lot of fun and it's a great skill to learn. And what I love about Jonathan, he's not one of those doom and gloom AI people that the Terminator is going to kill us and we're all going to lose our jobs to AI. But he does say, you're going to lose your job to a person who knows AI if you don't start to learn it and integrate it. It's kind of like, not knowing how to use email or an internet browser. Like we all know how to use those things now. All right, I digress. Our game's not getting any better here. It's 58-39. We're on Trip. What's your Miami Hurricane memory, Trip?
Well, it's not a Miami Hurricanes memory, but it is a Miami memory. South Beach is my second home, so I was in the VIP section under LeBron and Dwayne Wade and those guys after the Heat beat the San Antonio Spurs. So I think that was the best Miami memory for me.
Ooh, awesome! That would be a good man. When you say the VIP section, you mean like seats at the game?
No. I mean, at Story Lounge after they won the championship, the after party is there, and there's like sections over top of each other. So LeBron is here, and then I'm like in the section that's right underneath LeBron and them in VIP.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
Snow
so
bunnies.
cool that you got to celebrate the victory with them on South Beach.
That was back when I was a LeBron fan back then. He was LeBron back then. That was before the Billy Goat.
And Uncle Luke was right outside the club. As soon as I left the club, he was sitting across the street.
Stop about that. Let me see you.
Best night in Miami ever was that night.
All right, let's go next to David. What's your best Miami memory?
It's bittersweet because he was talking about the 03 Fiesta Bowl. And I kind of told you I used to be a Dolphins fan. That stems because I had family living in Miami. So Miami's kind of like the Heat, Marlins, Canes. So that was actually my first college football game watching, that 03 Fiesta Bowl. So as a kid, that's kind of what got me into football. We just went down memory lane with that one, so I won't get too much into it. Other bittersweet thing is I always thought that when the Canes basketball team hired Larinaga from George Mason, I thought they were going to be something serious. Unfortunately, they had to take out the Cougs to get to the Elite Eight and eventually to the Final Four last year. So it was bittersweet for me.
Yeah, I mean, last year is by far their best run ever, right? In terms of basketball. I know you're a big Houston fan. It'd be cool if they gave them a rematch this year in the tournament somehow, or if those guys could get on the schedule for a regular season game, because you'd probably slaughter them with who they got out there this year. All right. Let's see. Bobby still has his hand up. Go ahead, Bobby, with your Canes story.
So for me, I'm gonna hit it from a different angle. For me, it was their run on running backs from like 96 to like 2004. You know,
Edgerrin
you don't
James?
really. Man, I'm trying to tell you. I mean, people don't talk about it, but they had Hall of Fame running backs, and it's they're coming. Oh, I mean, they were just beasts. I mean, Edgerrin James. Then you had Frank Gore, and then Clinton Portis. They had Najee Davenport. I mean, they were just loaded at that position, and they just don't get enough credit for that. That was my memory of them. I also obviously loved the Michael Irvin teams and Jimmy Johnson, but that's pretty cliche. I think we all either loved them or hated them. I loved them. But that's what I remember most was just those running backs. I played running back, so I watched them a lot, and they just had some really great recruitment at that position for, like I said, a strong run of about 6 years. So it was amazing.
Yeah, they sure did. Running back right, with all those guys coming out of there for a while. Let's see what's happening in the game here. We got what looks like a flagrant foul under review. I don't know why Duke is having a flagrant foul right now when they're up
bored,
like
man. They
this.
so bored. They just beating people up.
Is it me or does it look like the Hurricanes are wearing their practice jerseys? I don't know. I'm not.
Does look like practice jerseys.
Let's see. What you guys take on this? I mean, he grabs him, doesn't allow him to get the shot off.
Yeah, it's not a basketball move.
Is that a
he came up? He went up
flagrant one, yeah.
Oh, that number 15.
He's 7 foot, man.
Who's that guy? I remember him from
Omer.
last year.
Or Chad Omer.
15 there. He was a hustler last year. I liked
he's
him.
like a football player.
Yeah.
Yep.
No
He's
question.
nice, man. He's the key to that team, man. I thought he was going to take over this game, and it ain't happened.
Yeah, so they called that what do you get, a tee and the ball in college, right? It's hard to stay up on all the rules. I'll tell you, that's one of the hardest things as a high school basketball referee like I am, is that fans think NBA rules or college rules. You don't know how many fans will yell at me like, he was under the hoop. And I'm like, we don't have that for a charge here. And I'm like, you just got to take it, them yelling at you about stuff.
Are you doing that in North Carolina?
No, I work in Hillsborough County in Tampa. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I know you said you were in I was going to say that does not surprise me around here. They are the worst.
Yeah. High school season for me is over. I don't do the high school playoffs. You got to do a lot of ass kissing and politicking to get those games assigned. So.
Greg, what's your go-to move to shush a coach? Like, what's your
coach?
you got a go-to move?
Yeah, give him that.
I do actually. I literally have a whole journal of one-liners.
I love it.
But I'm like game management, relationship building is really what makes a great referee. So usually I'll give them. I'll look for that next time. What'd you see on that, coach? Well, what you're trained to do as a referee is respond to questions. You want to have a dialogue. But if he's just yelling, that's a travel. You don't respond to that at all. But if he asks you a question, you respond to it. You want to have communication. Once a game, I go to we might have missed that. I'm not afraid to use that and just be honest, and coaches appreciate that. Game management is like kind of the fun psychology of games. And by the way, us as sports fans, I feel like one of the great things with a show like this is we get to hear other people's opinions. We get to be open-minded to it. We need more of that in life, and in our leadership in life, we need more people that are just willing to listen to other people and enjoy hearing their stories and connecting with people like we're doing here. Before we move on to our next topic, I want to, you guys hit on a lot. I was really racking my brain for a great Miami Hurricanes moment, and I wanted it to be basketball, college basketball, and I was like, who do I even know that even played? I would have to. The only reason I know Tito Horford because it's Al Horford's dad played at Miami back in the day. So there was nothing there. But then it popped into my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like one of the best moments and seasons and runs in college hoops. How can you not have followed this last year? Because it was fun on the internet. And let me tell you what it was. It was the Cavender twins making their run to the Sweet 16 for Miami female hoops last year.
Snow bunnies.
If you guys don't follow them on online, you've got
I think one of them is going back. One of them is coming back playing.
No, they're wrestlers. They're in the WWE.
No, but one of
what
them
they're
is actually
doing now.
deciding
I
to come
stopped
back
following
on
them.
college basketball.
I stopped following them, but like when they were in high school, they would post pictures like they'd be doing like drills, dribbling, but both of them like in sync and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And then they went out, they went to school in California, and I kind of turned them off and stopped following them. And they transferred to Miami for last year, their senior year. They said this was really interesting. I don't know if anybody has a take on this. Maybe Dan might know, but I saw the interview with them. They said like we transferred to Miami because Florida allows more favorable NIL deals. And of course, there's no state taxes here. They didn't mention that, but wherever they were in California, and somehow the state, they made it sound like the state was restricting what you could offer your players through NIL. So they left and came over to Miami. Maybe they just wanted to be in the Miami, scene for their senior year too. But is that a thing, Dan? Do like state laws limit what colleges can do? Because that's not a fair playing ground if that's the case.
Yeah, I believe so. I think, and that's the thing now is like there's legislation, Fair Play to Play Act. I mean, since that's been taken over college sports, everybody's just going to go to basically, as long as they can play and it's a good fit for them, they're going to try to get the best bang for their buck. And I think that's, good for these players and student athletes, because obviously it's kind of taken over the sport. But I mean, I think that is a belief thing, because there are certain issues with like states and taxes, and I know that they were a big hit. But like you said, that was pretty awesome. I know they lost 316, I think it was, or Elite Eight. I remember one of them.
They were a big surprise.
I
think they went to the Elite Eight. Maybe lost to Villanova or the Big East team.
Yeah.
And the one twin didn't even start for them.
Right.
And they were a big surprise to make that run. But it was a lot of fun watching. I mean, women's hoop burst, into the scene last year with Caitlin Clark. If you guys missed, we had a fun segment earlier.
Upset alert.
Upset alert. Who's that?
Penn State just beat Illinois right quick at the buzzer, 90-89. Let's do it, Penn State.
They were down by 15 too at one point.
They were down by 15.
Wow. All right. I love that, getting the upset on that.
The Big Ten is fun. The ACC is dog shit.
Good God. What?
Let's hop
We'll
over
be
to
very
that,
interested to see if you keep that same take after the tournament.
Yeah, probably. Well, yeah, no, probably.
Let's hop over
I'll
to
say
that
watch
box
out of
score.
Florida. Florida's beating Alabama.
Did anybody see what
yes,
happened? Who hit the game winner here? Let's just.
It was a foul.
Illinois. Free throws.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty balanced team there for Penn State. They had 5 guys in double figures.
Yeah.
They're not very good, Greg. Penn State's not very good.
They're not very good. And Illinois is obviously overrated.
No, my dad went to Penn State, and we went back out there this year for a football game to see them play earlier this year, and we follow Penn State hoops. The last 2 years, they've been great. The program was resurging, and then they kind of messed things up with their coach. He left and took the Notre Dame job, and Penn State doesn't seem to be very good this year, huh?
I think Penn State in football, and well, I don't really follow them in basketball, but definitely for football, they're just always
disappointing.
Yeah, like you only have to beat 2 teams in the conference that you're in. 2 teams to have a shot at the postseason, and it's Jimmy's and Joe's, but it's also X's and O's, and I think that's where Penn State is outclassed and outmatched, especially when it comes to football.
I'm gonna write that down, Christian. That's a great saying.
Yeah, I love it. Let's pop over to the chat, by the way, on YouTube and just see if anybody has any takes here. We got a Fresno hater here. Penn State about to upset Illinois. Alex was on that game there. Let's see what else we got in here. As far as some LSU and Alabama fans. Yeah, cool. Well, Penn State, it's funny that their AD, when the coach left this year, I read the article and he said, "Oh, we want Penn State to be a destination for basketball. We don't want to be a stepping stone for some coaches. So this is a sign of what we got to do with our program." But they had a good run last year. They made the Big 12 championship game last year. They had 2 players get drafted in the NBA, and I think they made the Sweet 16 in March Madness, and it's disappointing to see them kind of fall back to the pack. Illinois always seems to be good. Didn't we have somebody here from Illinois? Are you was it? Oh, it was
Dan, right? Dan.
Yeah, I wondered if if we were going to get any Illinois favorite player.
No, Dan looks like a DePaul guy. You look like a DePaul guy.
I used to go to DePaul a lot games back in the day. Yeah, I've seen some good ones. I saw Kenyon Martin. Nice. Played Duke, I think, one year. But yeah, I saw like one of the last games Kenyon Martin played before he broke his leg, I think.
Oh, wow.
DePaul lost like an 82-80 game or something. Quentin Richardson hit a 3 from beyond half court after the buzzer horned. And it went in, of course. So that was like the last time DePaul was pretty good. They had Bobby Simmons was an NBA player. Stephen Hunter was pretty good. Quentin Richardson, obviously, I think was all Big East. Or all Conference USA, all conference. So it was a lot of fun back then. But yeah, Illinois, Coleman Hawkins missed 2 free throws, and then he fouled Penn State shooting a 3. So he pretty much committed 2 cardinal sins in the final 10 seconds of regulation. So he probably have to delete his account and not check social media tonight.
Terrence Shannon, I think, had 40. I think he's player of the year candidate for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be probably an All-American. Obviously, with him getting suspended, he
probably yeah.
But I mean, he might be, we'll see. I mean, he's definitely one of the more talented players. Illinois' defense has been really shaky, so they've been winning games. The big question is who's the biggest challenger to Purdue, because the Big Ten may be more balanced than the ACC, but after Purdue, the Big Ten hasn't exactly had great success since it's been almost a quarter century now since the Big Ten has won a natty.
Michigan State, right?
2000. Yep.
Yeah, Michigan State.
Team Cleaves, Smoke Pete,
wow.
Charlie Bell. That's amazing. We're at 24 years.
So how dare you say that, Alex?
I think they're like 0-8.
I'll keep my mouth shut now. I'll stop talking. I'm an absolute moron.
That's all right. That's all right.
Wow. Well, yeah, that was an exciting finish on the other channel while we've been watching this blowout here with Duke, Miami. So these games, it's cool getting to see these games. March Madness is right around the corner. Next week's the final regular season. Then we got conference tournament. Then we got the NCAAs. I wanted to see if they have a criteria for making their March Madness picks. I thought it'd be cool for us to share some of the strategies that we use. If anybody wants to raise their hand and give a take on this, and then we're going to get into some football, even some early fantasy football talk here, and also preview tomorrow night's NBA games. But let's get some March Madness. We got some good college basketball fans here tonight. So we'll start with Dan. What do you look for in filling out your brackets, Dan?
Yeah, so not to, to mush your picks, more so to help your picks. I wouldn't lean heavily on how teams look in conference tournaments. I'd have to, recalculate the numbers, but I've done some numbers over the years as a former researcher. Usually over half the national champions have lost their conference tournaments. So, like, for example, North Carolina's got 7 national championships. They've got 1 conference tournament championship out of those 7 runs. Meaning they've won national championships losing prior to the ACC championship game, let alone in the championship game. So, last year, I loved UConn. I watched them the Big East tournament. Wasn't overly impressed. I had them as a 3 seed. I was slightly wrong. They got a 4 seed. They had a great draw. and then it even helped them more so that Kansas got lost to Arkansas. So I'm looking for favorable draws. I think that's
well, let's start at the top of
yeah,
this. I'm enjoying getting to dissect you here. I think this will be valuable for everybody here.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear everybody's strategies here. But so if we start from the top, right, which is who wins the national title, are you saying is your strategy to try to pick the team that wins the national title? Because I'll tell you, my strategy is Final Four. Who's capable of going on a run to the Final Four, which means you have to win 4 games in a row. And then once they're in the Final Four, to me, it's a crapshoot at that point. Anything can happen, right? So, and I would say if we look at conference tournament teams that make the Final Four, and I don't have any data, I'm just talking off of what seems to have worked for me in 30 years, that a lot of conference tournament winning teams do tend to make the Final Four. But is your strategy that you got to pick the winner? Because maybe that's something I need to be more open-minded to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're in a pool, you got to know your points. Some point systems are just most correct. Some go 2, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 in terms of the point differential.
Almost all of them, I feel like, have it going up something. It might be different how it goes up.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I was saying it. If mine's like 16 and 20 to get a team to the title game, Final Four title. So, I mean, if it's like 50 and before the next round's like 30, then you could take a shot, know how many people are in your pool. Obviously, if you're in a pool with, 200-300 plus people, then you might not want to take the chalk in terms of the favorites. But loosely, I'm always going to take a handful of favorites. Very rarely, I think it's only 4 times in the history of the tournament. Seeding began in 1979, but you're almost guaranteed at least one seed and lose at least 1 2 seed more times than not. Last year was the very rare occurrence we had 0 1 seeds. So you can pretty much bet the Summer Ranch and take every money possible that you're going to get at least 1 seed to get there this year, since we are coming off a year where we had all the upsets last year. History shows that when that happens, usually you get some heavy favorites in the Vegas for sakes. I wouldn't pay too close attention to the AP poll rankings as opposed to the seeds. Those are more important, usually. So bracket matrix, you can see where teams are seated. But pay attention to injuries. How teams have played their last 10 games is important. I wouldn't, it's not life or death if a team lost in the if UConn loses in the Big East semis. That's what they did last year, and they still win it all. How you're playing down the stretch, the committee's going to view your team of who's on the team now. So if certain guys get injured, like Rutgers lost their center last year. They didn't make the tournament. They didn't play great down the stretch to begin with. But if you lose players on the stretch and you show that, you're not a great team without this star, then they're going to view you as not great. So I think it is important to see how teams gel pretty much right around Valentine's Day until it gets to Selection Sunday. So we're under 28 days. So now is kind of the time where you start looking at, I mentioned top of the show, those 6 teams that I like a lot. I would bet that 3 or 4 of them are going to probably go to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8, and maybe 1 or 2 will probably play in the Final Four. I would like to take my chances with those teams. But there's certain sleepers that have good draws. There's some teams that can get overseeded, underseeded. Obviously, it helps if you follow the brackets and how teams are playing throughout a season. But there are teams that can get dinged up in January or February. Like UConn was amazing last year. And then in the middle of the year, they kind of struggled a little bit, and they turned it on a little bit late. But wasn't flawless by any means, but they were healthy, and that's really what it's all about. So kind of following down the stretch from here on out to see what teams are playing their best basketball when it matters most.
All right, cool. Let's hear what everyone else has as far as strategies. Then we can circle back to Dan at the end there. But I think one interesting thing I got from what Dan just said is basically like looking at those games in November, December, just for quality wins is like pointless, because it could be a whole different team, a whole different vibe. They could have gelled completely since then. So focusing on what they've been doing these last 6 weeks, I think makes a lot of sense. And it's not something I've always done. I'll often look up all their games. All right, go ahead, Christian. What's your main strategies for picking your March Madness bracket?
The criteria that I look for is, how tenured both the coach and the players are, like how long they've been together as a unit. Secondly, I think an overlooked stat is offensive rebounds and second chance points. I think when you look at the teams that can get multiple opportunities in one trip, they're typically the ones that can make it further into the tournament. And then the biggest one that I think people pay too much attention to that I don't think really translates is 3-point percentage. I think that kind of goes out the window in the tournament. I think that you really have to get down to um, who can make a play one-on-one. It's not so much as sets and running, set plays, which you see all,
Well,
excuse me, throughout conference play. But
yeah.
when it comes down to the tournament, I think the teams that have the guys that can go one-on-one and get a bucket are typically the ones that I tend to pull for.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with that, that you got to look at who can make a play to win a game at the end. In fact, I would then thus say really stats become irrelevant. I'm not looking at anybody's rebounding stats or 3-point stats. Like, to me, that stuff's all lost in the matchups at this point in the year. You make an interesting point that I'd like to get other people's takes on, and this is what's so great about crowdsourcing, strategies here about, if the team and the coach are back again, if they have some returning players, is that really something that matters or not? I'd be interested to see, if that is something that really pans out or not. I get the logic of it, right? If you have tournament experience. All right, cool. We're kind of putting all the ideas into the the thought pool here, and then we can kind of assess them or take what we want from each of this to make the best of our own strategies. Bobby, what's your main strategies in filling out your bracket? Oh, you're on mute still.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So for me, I've actually won a couple. I won my first one the year that Texas made it to the Final Four with Kansas, and then I won a couple of years back. So for me, obviously it's luck. I mean, it just is what it is. It's luck.
I was gonna. My 16-year-old has won this thing, so and she
Yeah.
doesn't even know any.
Yeah, exactly. So for me though, I always pick a 5-12 upset. Here lately, you got to pick a 2-15 upset. I mean, because the 15 seeds are winning. Usually 2 to 3 1 seeds make a Sweet 16. I usually bet the teams that have things that you can't coach, right? So you can't coach size and you can't coach speed. And then, like someone said, I like the teams that have guys that can get a bucket, beat a man one-on-one and get to the hole. So that's kind of how I usually do it. You can't really go by stats because it only takes one bad game. A guy's a great 3-point shooter having an off night. I mean, you just, it's a one and done. It's not like the NBA where it's a series. So that's the kind of thing that I look for. And then when all else fails, have your wife pick it. She's like, "Oh, they're Cougars."
Yeah, let's look at the mascots and the colors, right?
I like the uniform. Yeah, the mascot. So if all else fails, do that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, some interesting things in there. I like how you break it down by rounds and numbers. I think that's interesting stuff to get into, and to each his own what you want to play. I take 1s and 2s chalk. No, like I feel like the odds are there with 1s and 2s to win the first round at least. And then I don't think it's worth it to try to pick the right 2 that's going to get upset, because those are still real long shot ones. You said something interesting. You can't coach height. But then you talked about a player being able to make a play. Like, I generally go with, it's a guard-driven game. Guards are the closers. It can be a forward, but I'm not taking Purdue ever, who's built around a center. Teams that are, even Shaq, right, didn't have a run in March Madness. Like, there really hasn't been a center-led team, since the Jabbar days, that has gone on a run in March Madness. So,
well, usually Purdue's big men are very unathletic. So
They're just tall and lanky, man.
They're just tall. They just
Yeah.
tall.
Yeah, to me, Purdue, I'm not confident in them past the Sweet 16 at all, or any team, you know, with a big man like Arizona when they had Eaton. Like it just isn't usually a dominant big man that carries you. Maybe Greg Oden's the last one I can think of that had a Final Four run as a big man. All right, cool stuff. Let's go next to Alex. What do you look for in picking your March Madness brackets that hasn't been said yet?
First off, I'll agree with you, Greg. Pick the Final Four instead of the champion. I think I'm different with most people too. I do a bunch of brackets depending on how I weight it based on money and money entry and that sort of thing. I never pick the same bracket. One of my brackets will all be favorites, and then I always pick the 12-5 upset, of course. And then I look for teams that have good guard play, guards that can score. I will say I like to favor teams that shoot the three well in the tournament, especially when you're picking upsets. If you get back like the Steph Curry, Davidson days, I think St. Peter's shot the ball lights out in the tournament last year. Teams like that you look for. You also look for teams to get hot in March. And I was just speaking on the guard play. You look at a team like I'm from Wisconsin, but Marquette. I don't like Marquette, but I do watch them. They're on TV all the time. They have good guard play. They got Tyler Kolek. He's a good defender. They just don't have a big man, so that's going to affect them in the tournament. But, Marquette lost 3 in a row in January. Now they've rallied off. Besides the UConn game this past week, and they've rallied off like 7 wins in a row in a tough Big East. So I'd say predominantly I look at good guard play when I'm picking teams to win.
Yeah, I'm with you on the guard play. Although I'll say, I feel like I've been burned so many times with the one and done guards. I try to avoid that. If anybody else took Trae Young back in the day at Oklahoma, right, and had our hearts broken, like he was made for March Madness, and it just doesn't tend to work out with those guys. So I shy away from the one and done guards. And for a long time, I would pick conferences. I would assess who do I think is the best conference this year, because there is one conference generally tends to dominate March Madness, but I've never been able to pick it right. So I've kind of gone away with that. Like you might have said last year, I was, Big 12 was like, to me, I think they were the consensus top conference last year. I picked Texas to go all the way. And the rest of the Big 12 kind of underachieved, and Texas, let me down at the end. All right, let's hear from David. What do you look for in strategy and filling out your bracket?
Yeah, so first things first, this Florida-Alabama game, if y'all aren't watching, this
yes, it's close. It's close. Come on.
So definitely watch this. I actually posted a video. I kind of talked about it a couple days ago. This guy had like all these trends that you can make an educated guess on who's going to make it to the Final Four. So I posted that in the video in the chat if anybody wants to look. But with myself, I really just go with trends. Like, you can never bet against the 1 seed in the first round. Only twice have they ever lost. An 8-9 seed, you can probably pick 1 or 2 9 seeds to advance. Sometimes I just go with my gut. Last year I picked Princeton over Arizona and Furman over Virginia. Just got lucky with those. But it's sometimes you just, this is Duke, this is Kentucky, the Blue Bloods you really just can't bet against. I had UCLA going to the Final Four last year. They did it. They ended up losing to either Gonzaga or UConn, but there's just certain teams you just don't bet against when it comes to the tournament. So that's pretty much how I do it. But the biggest thing, if I don't know about a team, I look up how's their defense. Somebody was saying you can't coach height, you can't coach athleticism, but the defense, if a team plays team defense, that's tough to beat. That's the biggest difference between college basketball and the NBA, because even if the team has no real talent, you'll be able to beat the Zion Williamsons and Trae Youngs just because you can put a stop to them.
So what exactly do you look up to determine their defense?
Yeah, so I like to look up at the Ken Pom. That's pretty much like the Bible when it comes to the NCAA. So for example, like tonight I saw Miami was 112th in the Ken Pom defense. So I was like, okay, Duke's going to be raining down on them. But Ken Pom goes over all of that.
Let's go Florida.
That's what I'm saying. Come on.
To live and die off.
It's tied. Wow.
But just to reemphasize what you're saying, David, like, you can't coach this, you can't coach that, but you can coach hustle, and I think that is all that rebounding, especially second chance rebounding is. That's why that is like one of my biggest things, along with defensive efficiency, the two stats that I think translate the most.
So yeah, so you guys are looking at those stats. Yeah, that's interesting. I look back through schedule a lot, but I don't really look at stats at all. I guess there's different ways to try to approach this. Jason, what are your main strategies?
Just to reiterate, in a perfect world, I will never, ever, ever put Duke as a national champion. So that's that's first and foremost. So like to piggyback off Christian and Bobby, man, it's I there's a little luck like Bobby was saying, and then for me, if it's teams that I'm not really familiar with, I'll look at them and like try to see what class and as like the coach and how long the tenure, how long they've been playing together, and it kind of works that way. I just see those 12 teams, those 12 to 16, like those teams they're big time in their conference, and they make a lot of noise when they get in this tournament. That's where all these Cinderella stories come from. So, it's just and a little bit of luck. Like I said, I'm just an average guy just trying to get in there and just make it big and some make some money on these tournaments here.
Yeah.
Hey, this Florida Alabama game is tied with 14 seconds left, but
that's brutal.
What channel is that on?
ESPN2.
ESPN2. Let me flip over.
yeah, that is brutal. My bad.
They were up by like 10 points. They gave away the rock.
Tied ball game. They just had two chances and they didn't score. We're gonna see what's happening.
Yeah, for a while they went like 2 minutes without any field goals, and Alabama just kept scoring.
The Gators are ranked, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, the 24th is to be an upset. Alabama's 13.
It's still an upset, though. I'm all about the upsets.
Let's go.
Christian was right. They had two chances, the two offensive rebounds. They could have just put it away, but they couldn't make that. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. Some takes here. David mentioned Arizona last year. He picked them, Princeton over them. Wow. I had them out in the second round, though. They fall under that category of they had two dominant bigs last year. And I looked for guard-driven teams. That's why I wasn't so high on Arizona last year. I'll tell you another thing that I'm reevaluating in the past couple of years is I used to look for like a complete unit, a team that I felt like had a big, had the stopper, had the point guard, had the closer. And that's never worked for me.
Don't work.
I feel like I've been riding UCLA a lot after these last 2 years, and I just felt like they had like a complete team, and they haven't been able to put it together and get back to the Final Four where they were 3 years ago when I didn't have them. And that's the thing too. Like I've been like a year late on these teams too, right? The UCLA guys are back. They got experience, and then it didn't work out. So those are some things that I feel like are kind of like sound good in theory, but haven't worked out for me. Jackie, what's your main strategies for filling out your bracket?
First, I go with the underdogs. I don't really care about the brackets. I just pick the underdogs, and I don't want to see everybody get beat. But on a serious note, it's more like stars. I pick the NBA ready stars more, and if the team has one, I give them a chance. If they got two, it works out. And like you said, complete teams that can play offense and defense together. They don't even have to have stars. If they got a coach and they got the complete squad, you want to give them a shot. And most of the time, those guys are the underdogs. So that's how my brackets roll.
Well, I was saying the complete teams hasn't worked out for me. Neither has the NBA stars, the Trae Youngs, John.
Oh no, they don't. It never works out. My bracket's always a bust. I just like to pick them.
Well, that's why I'm shifting more to conferences. Who's battled tough this year? Who's hot in the conference tournament? Because these other things we're talking about haven't really worked out for me.
The conference thing works more in football, but in basketball, it's not so much.
Last year was such a crapshoot. Like, who would have thought San Diego State and FAU would both make the Final Four?
Right. I mean, those are you got to assume nobody's got those, and then it comes down to the other. I mean, unless you're playing, with thousands of people or something,
And
right?
let me ask y'all, back to speaking of NBA talent teams not making it far, when Villanova, I think it was Villanova with Brunson and DiVincenzo, a couple of guys that are doing really well right now in the league. I don't think that they were projected to do so when they were playing then, which this goes back to your point. I don't think you can really go too much off of the NBA talent.
Yeah, but that to me, that's like their first national title. They were a surprise. The next 2 years, I think they were favored to win the national title. But I like that was just a great program, right? I think I had the Villanova. I had them in the Final Four that year that Krzyzewski and Dean Smith made it just 2 years ago, right? Because that's just like a great team. But now that the coach is gone, I don't put much stake in that. That's why I stayed away from UConn last year. Like Hurley doesn't really have the experience in the tournament, and look how that backfired on me.
FYI, guys, we're going to overtime with Florida, Alabama. I think Florida then blew their shot. Alabama about to run them out the gym.
Oh, don't be so negative. Come on now.
Made a good point talking about because honestly, when you're picking your brackets, who's really watched all 64 teams, and depending on a team's schedule, their stats could be very misleading. That was El Maniaco in the chat, which I think is a good point because that's why nobody picked UConn because like they had like 6 losses last year, but they were all in conference. Outside of the conference, nobody was messing with them.
I'm El Maniaco.
Okay,
I'm El Maniaco. Like that's my email handle. The man's man is what it means.
Oh, good. Yeah, we want to keep
or the fanatic.
Hey,
the El Maniaco in Spanish means the fanatic or the man's man.
While we're
which
here
happens to be me.
YouTube.
Man, you sound like TP Hearn, man. You know what TP Hearn is?
I don't. I don't know. I get Kevin Hart a lot because I'm short, so I don't know.
No.
Let's have everybody go over. Let's have everybody go over to the YouTube chat and put in at this point who we would take to win it all next year. I mean, in March Madness. Let's put our early season picks here. Obviously, we got to see where they line up, but let's just get some engagement going in the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'd love to have you come join us here on Zoom. I'm going to put the Zoom link in here again. We've had a few people come up kind of out of the crowd and join us. And we're having a lot of fun here talking March Madness strategy. We're getting ready to get into football, fantasy football, NBA. We got a big NBA doubleheader tomorrow. We got this overtime game right now with the Gators and Bama. Duke is pretty much up 30. That game is a final now. So we don't have to pay any more attention to that. But yeah, let's keep going with the Final Four or March Madness strategies here. I had somebody on one of the other shows this week mention me something I'd never looked at, but they were saying that you play on short notice, right? You play like Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday, and that they would look to teams that have more depth, more bench. And because players get tired on short notice. That's something that I had never looked at. I'm also not a big stats guy. Drew, what do you look for in your March Madness strategies?
Yeah, a lot of y'all brought some good points. I like guards that can score. Because you look at a lot of the previous teams that won, like Kemba Walker when he went on that run, and all the guys from Villanova that play with the Knicks now, they play good. So I look at that as well as I look at experience as well because like y'all was saying, a lot of one and done guys, they don't really get it done in the March Madness when the lights are bright. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess because they're freshmen, they're not used to the tournament because the tournament is different. It's not like high school. It's not. It's a whole nother atmosphere when you go out there and you got to play against inferior competition and at such short notice, like y'all said. So those are the main things I look at when I'm doing my brackets and luck as well, obviously.
You bring up some good teams for us to look at for some trends in, right? And The teams you mentioned, Villanova, for example, even if we look at last year's teams, they tend to be guard centric, but have multiple guards. They're not riding one guy all the way. They got more than one player who can make a shot, because you're going to need that in the tournament. Teams can take away your one best player. So to kind of sum things up, and for this, again, we're assuming that you're in a tournament that doubles each round you go up. If you're like Jackie and you like to bet the underdogs, you probably should play in a tournament that rewards you. Some play double points if you pick the underdog, because you're trying to incent you to pick the underdog. But if you're in a traditional bracket, I ride my picks. If I have multiple brackets, I ride my picks till round 8. Whatever I pick in the first round, I keep that the same across all brackets. It's my best picks, right? And then around 8 is where I start to tinker with things. I'll pick different scenarios that might go 8-4-2, so that if my teams get through, I'm in a really strong position because I've got multiple brackets with the same teams that are there, right? So that's part of my strategy. I take all the ones and all the twos, typically through to the Sweet 16. I'm not usually picking upsets of those chalk teams. I do look to see if they're hot in their conference tournament. I don't know if that has played out or not. I think it's about 50-50 with teams making the Final Four, but 50-50 is pretty good compared to outside the chalk. I look for coaching experience in the tournament. I don't put so much player experience in the tournament. I look for a bunch of guards that can carry the team. I stay away from the big man teams. Of course, injuries. Another thing no one's mentioned is home court advantage. If I see a team is playing in their home city, that's something that I'll take into consideration. I mean, pretty much all these games are 50-50, once you get past the first round. So anything like that, can be what gives you an edge in this. All right, let's bring it home with Dan. What else you got as far as March Madness strategies, Dan? Or you're still on mute, Dan B.
I got you. My screen went away for a second. Yeah, I think strategies. I mean, we talk about the injuries, how teams are playing down the stretch. There's certain stats like more times than not you're going to see a 12 upset of 5. But in terms of going, deep into the tournament, you can study matchups. And I think somebody mentioned Ken Palm. I think all the national champions have been top 40 in offense and defense. So that's a good number to look at. That's free for everybody to view. I even like top 20. It's good to have a balanced team. There's some teams that are just going to outscore teams like an NBA team. That very rarely can happen in the last quarter century, where you just get teams winning 90-85. Eventually, you're going to go to a court, you might have tough rims, and you might just not have a great night shooting. A good matchup last year to describe that, what I'm talking about, would be Alabama played San Diego State in the Sweet 16. It was at Louisville. Those are tough rims. A lot of people don't even look at that, but I look at everything. But the Aztecs, are going to shut your water off from deep, so you're going to have to beat it up inside and be physical with them. And Alabama says, no, we'll just keep shooting until our arms fall off. And then Aztecs says, we'll take this dub. And that's kind of how it went. And that happens a lot in March Madness. So there's some teams that are just too reliant, live and die by the 3. So you don't really want that too much. You do want at least one stud guard would be helpful. Like we talk about Kemba Walker, Shabazz Napier. So there are certain players like Tennessee, North Carolina have two of the better scoring guards in the country, arguably. So, it is good to have multiple scoring guards.
They just need to have.
Yeah, but you got to have health. You got to have balance. I prefer to have a good guards, but how you play down the stretch, I wouldn't, overview your conference. I'm not saying I'm going to pick teams that are in a bad conference, but, there's some historic teams. Really, it's really been Big 12 and ACC relevant. Big East, obviously, with Nova and UConn have had dominance. But for the most part, I think teams at their ceiling, I would look at a consistent and a ceiling and see where those teams are. Alabama at their ceilings are pretty good, but when they're not playing their top game, you saw they were very fortunate to get into regulation to go to overtime and look like they're going to prevail here. But I look at that Ken Palm, top 40 offense, defense. You don't want somebody that's pretty poor on either side. of the ball, the floor, if you will. So those big six teams I talked about, those are some good contenders right now. But keep paying attention, make sure nobody gets that big injury, because we saw, like you talked about, Kenyon Martin. They could have probably won it all or Final Four, and then they lost in the opening weekend. They lost in the round of 32 to, I believe it was West Virginia on the last shot. So, certain teams need their stars. The great teams are relying on them, but also have role players that could be stars on other teams, and that's usually a trend for teams that get to the Final Four.
Yeah, I like that. Good points. And interesting, you were mentioning Alabama. Of course, they're up 7 now, pulling away.
Told you I was about to take them. They're about to take them to the clinic, man.
Yeah, Jackie, so far I like your picks here, man. Alabama, they were an interesting team last year, right? They were, I think, #1 in the country, led by a one and done kid, though, which kind of goes against my rule, but he was also like the consensus, player of the year. And then he missed the big shot, right? Brandon Miller had a chance at the end to send him forward and kind of let him down. There was a lot of pressure around everything off the court he was dealing with as well. Off the court, pressure is another variable that I think can be a factor in all of this. Well, all right, we broke down college hoops pretty good tonight. I want to cover some NBA and NFL. I know that's what a lot of you guys are into, and those are some of the main things we talk about. The show is mostly focused on basketball and football. We cover both college and pros here. And those are the sports I feel like we need more of. Those are the sports that bring people together and teach putting the team first. Again, like values that we need more of in life and in leadership out there. And as we come together in community to share these games, we realize how valuable it is being a sports fan. I feel like a lot of people shit on sports fans these days. I hear people saying, it's become an addiction and the gambling is rampant and, you watch too much sports. And on the flip side of that, though, like sports is one of the greatest ways to bring people together and bond people and be in teams. It's one of the greatest places to, learn to put something besides yourself.
Oh, nice deal. Let's go.
Yeah. That could be the end there. They didn't call a foul on that.
Nah, they just took it from that's a foul right there, man. You over the man back. Who they call a foul on though? Let's see.
Well, Florida's cut it to 3 here, so we got a close finish to this. From our NBA fans, I'd love to get a take if anybody has one on the Mavs and the Suns game. We're going to cover that tomorrow. Then we're going to go to Lakers, Warriors. Anybody looking forward to seeing Mavs Suns tomorrow? I know I haven't seen the Suns since they got their big 3 yet. Because I've been so focused on football. I don't even know if Beal is playing at all.
How does LeBron get a whole week off and now he can't play the first game back? Come on.
He dunked that tomahawk. He did that tomahawk dunk in the All-Star game, and it is man.
If he's gonna complain about that, then get in the dunk competition already.
But going to what you said about the game tomorrow night, I think that the rivalry that has been created between Luka and D-Book is always, get your popcorn ready type entertainment. And then, the big 3 on Phoenix's team is always interesting to see because you expect so much from them. And I think we expect that from them consistently.
But they got KD, King disappointment.
Yeah. Hey, let's check back to our game here. Gators have cut it to 1.
What?
Oh man, you're ahead of me by like 5 seconds.
I know, like our game cast still has
Our
it.
game cast is on 2 different levels. There we go. 35 seconds though. Let's see what happens.
That's the one advantage of paying $200 a month for old-fashioned cable is I get everything 5 seconds before all the streamers.
Hey guys, sorry, I gotta drop. Just had my first baby girl, so gotta get out of here.
Congrats,
I'll
man.
join you guys tomorrow. I really enjoyed it. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Christian. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Night, yo.
Let's go up to Trip and then Jordan. Trip, what are you looking forward to in this game tomorrow, Mavs Suns?
I'm definitely looking forward to Luka and Booker going back and forth at it. I also like Kyrie getting the go ahead going up with Kevin Durant. Obviously, we know it didn't work out too well in Brooklyn, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm taking the Suns in this game. I think they clearly are the better team, and I think they get the win easily tomorrow.
Who do you think Luka and Booker will guard each other? Or what do you think the matchup will be over there?
At some points during the game, but I think more so in the second half, you'll probably see that matchup just because I don't think either team is trying to have one of their superstars in foul trouble early. Usually that's just how it works. They're not going to guard each other much until the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I mean, KD's playing, right? So I think he's got the height to put on Luka. KD used to be a decent defensive player. He's getting a little long in the tooth, but
I don't think he was. I think it was just him being a part of the Golden State system. Because if you look at in OKC, no one talked about Kevin Durant being even a good defender. Then when he got to Golden State and their defensive schemes that he was a part of, then
He
people
didn't have to play defense. He had Draymond.
So yeah, so you look better when you got a defensive player of the year standing next to you. Then when you get to Brooklyn, nobody talks about Kevin Durant's defense, and the same thing in Phoenix. So I don't think he was ever really a.
I gotta say, he got better at defense in Brooklyn because he was trying to block shots and actually play, but he's just too skinny, man. Dude's my size.
You also gotta remember he blew out his Achilles and he still tried to play on it. So that definitely had to play a part in his defense now.
But yeah, think about it. Kevin Durant, he's just a shot blocker. He learned how to be a good shot blocker, good help defender, but he wasn't really like a good like one-on-one defender type person.
Sorry, Jordan. I just gotta ask you this. I gotta ask you this in front of everybody. Jordan Hawkins for 3. How's your 3-point jump shot?
The thing is, I'm a center. I ain't no 3-point shooter.
All right,
I am a center. I'm a back-to-basket center, Moses Malone
there we go.
type person, old school.
I got you.
Yeah, Gators give up the they had them stopped and then they
had
them the offensive
They
rebound.
had him and they just blew it, man.
They come down and take a bad 3. I guess
you don't go to overtime with a team that's better than you. You got to get rid of them, man.
Facts. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. When it went to overtime, I knew Alabama was gonna win.
That's rough. They were up by like 10 points through most of the game.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Sorry, man.
I thought I was coming here chomping. You know what I mean? I was getting excited. But
I know you was ready to do this.
I was ready. Come on, let's go.
Coming, man. But, once they got them 2 offensive rebounds and they didn't score them points and they went to overtime, it was over.
Yeah.
And it was almost a shot in OT too, because you saw the they had that last. If they had just gotten that rebound, it was a 1-point difference. You got a shot, but then the guy followed up and knocked it in. So that's that.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So, Jordan, what else? You got anything else on the Mavs Suns game that we should look for tomorrow?
To be honest, like this game should be a very pretty close game. Like I feel like over the years, like Dallas and Phoenix has like kind of come up with like a little rivalry, which I feel like is good, but it's just, to be honest, these two teams, they always disappoint me. They always have like decent regular season games, and then it's like when the playoffs, and I'm just like,
yeah, she's so right, man.
Well, they were in the Western Conference Finals not that long ago, right? That wasn't that 2 years ago.
Yeah, but then they got rid of everybody. Like for Dallas, they got rid of Jalen Brunson. I'm just like, why would you just not pay him the money? Like you didn't have to even pay him that much money. You didn't have to pay him like super max.
They should have kept Brunson, man. They should have kept Brunson.
Like they should have kept him.
Yeah, Brunson. I'm a big fan of Brunson.
Well, Brunson wanted to go play with his dad. His dad's a coach for the Knicks.
Yeah, but they should have paid that money because him and Luka, like that's what Luka needed. Luka needed Brunson because like him and Kyrie, it's just like who wants the ball? Like, oh, I'll take the ball this time. Okay, now I take the ball this time. It's just
Kyrie's so bossy, man. Like, sit down somewhere, man.
Yeah, he's never won really anywhere he's been except for LeBron. We hate him in Boston. But does anybody think, since we were talking about Duke most of the night, anybody think Derek Lively can impact this game tomorrow? Is he doing anything for Dallas? I haven't really seen him. I was surprised he got drafted as high as he did. He didn't do much for Duke last year. He was the high school's #1 ranked player coming out of high school. They said he could shoot threes, but he really didn't show any of that at Duke. Drew, what are you looking forward to in this game tomorrow night? Suns Mavericks.
I feel like it's gonna be a real good game. It's gonna be a close one. I'm looking forward to see the Mavs, they new squad, because they had made some trades at the trade deadline. They had got a center to, I guess, to replace well, maybe not replace him, but have the rookie come off the bench. They got Daniel Gafford. He's a solid center. For Luka, he could catch balls. Yeah, definitely. He could catch balls, play defense, something that Luka can't do. So it'll be interesting to see those teams match up. The Suns got a lot of star power though, so I see them winning it though, because they got KD, Book, and I think Bill hurt.
Do you think this will be a fun game to just sit back and take the over and enjoy the show?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I will say Dallas did make a good thing. Didn't Dallas got Daniel Gofford and PJ Washington on their team?
Yeah, they got PJ Washington too.
Yeah, I think that was a really good pickup for Dallas to have that type of depth, especially a big man like Daniel Gofford.
Yeah, I don't know much about Gofford, but PJ Washington has been solid starter for Charlotte for the past couple of years. And they gave up Grant Williams, who wasn't fitting in over there anymore after they gave him a huge contract. Just getting out of that contract, I think, was a win. David, what are you looking for in this game tomorrow? And then we're going to go quick. If anybody has anything on our second game tomorrow night, we'll touch on that.
Yeah, for sure. So my things with Dallas, and we give Doc Rivers a lot of flack. We say he's one of the most overrated coaches in the league, but at least he's won a ring. He's gone to the finals twice. Jason Kidd is so overrated, man. What has he done as a coach? He's a phenomenal basketball player. I think he was a top 75 point guard.
He developed.
He had a super team in Brooklyn. He didn't.
Jason Kidd is the Drew Brees of the NBA.
Didn't do anything with Joe Johnson in his prime. That offense ran through Joe Johnson. They couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything in Milwaukee. They brought him in so that way they could turn Giannis into the MVP that he was supposed to be. And it wasn't until they brought in Bud to do that. Now he's in Dallas. He took Rick Carlisle's team to the Western Conference Finals. That wasn't the team that he cultivated. That was the team that Rick Carlisle cultivated.
And Rick Carlisle is a far better coach.
The Suns blew it. That's why DeAndre Ayton got shipped out this last year. That's why Monty Williams isn't there. Jason Kidd's overrated as a coach. I can't believe he's still in the league, to be honest.
To be honest, he's overrated as a player. I do not like him as a player. I don't know why people
Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd.
He is an overrated point guard. He is an overrated point guard. Yes, I say it again, so I'm blue in the face.
Best passer probably ever.
What?
What?
Yes, overrated.
Wow.
That's a hot one. That's a hot one. That's a real hot one.
Let's start with the coaching conversation there. I think it's interesting. Doc Rivers, Jason Kidd are both known for their defense as players. And so they tend to have this perception that as coaches, they're these defensive-minded coaches because they played hard as players. But I don't know if that really translates into their coaching results. I would agree with your take on Kidd as a coach. As a player now, I mean, we're talking about probably the best rebounding guard of all time from
phenomenal.
His day.
He was Oscar Robertson, but not as good as Oscar Robertson.
Facts.
I mean, to me, Jason Kidd is the point guard that every point guard should aspire to be. I think he's the role model, and that's the way the game is supposed to be played, especially how he developed his shot eventually and was hitting threes and won a ring with Dallas. You know, he was arguably their second best player on that team that beat them.
He was Drew Brees, man.
That was Drew Brees. Jet was their second best player on that team, but yes, he played phenomenal during that run.
Yeah, I'm a big Jason Kidd fan of point guards. Point guards that don't need to shoot have a special spot in my heart. Rajon Rondo, one of my favorite Celtics of all time.
Jason Kidd is what Chris Paul wish he was.
You know, when Kidd took those Nets teams, Kidd took
Oh,
those
don't put
Nets
that on
teams to
him. Chris Paul
back-to-back
is way better
championships.
than Jason Kidd.
Eh.
It's just Chris Paul. He too injury prone.
Well, that's
Listen,
part
if
of being
Chris
able to
Paul
play.
was in the Lakers, you
That's a
probably would have
great
said something different.
comparison, though. I think I'm with you, Jordan, but Jackie's right. That's a great comparison. That I've never really looked at that. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Jackie, we gonna be friends, man.
Who that?
Who that?
Greg, thanks for hooking us up.
Yeah, no, I love it. We're building a community here. That's what this is about. Friendships are coming around sports. Alex, what are you looking forward for in this game? Oh, you're on mute still.
Thank you. For this game specifically, I like the under. We don't know if LeBron's playing right, but I think this is when they start. This is when the Lakers or LeBron starts to care, I think, towards the playoffs, and then they start to turn it on. They'll play defense. Warriors can score, but I think they kind of have more of a defensive mindset this year too. Draymond's back. Hopefully he doesn't kick anyone in the nuts this game. Otherwise, he might have to forcefully retire from the NBA. But just to counter, I wanted to counter your point, Greg, of asking about Doc Rivers, Jason Kidd's defensive play styles translating to their coaching. Bucks fan here, and I mentioned yesterday it's been a hell of a roller coaster this year. So we'll see what happens. But their defense was just shit terrible all year. And I know they're like 3-9 or 3-8 since Doc Rivers took over. They've had some injuries, but their defense went from like a 27th efficiency down back to a 14. So they've been pretty good under Rivers defensively. So I think it does equate to something, and we'll see what happens in the play.
Yeah, I mean, the jury's still out with what Doc Rivers can do. We lost your audio at the end there, but I think that's what you were saying on that. Yolanda, what are you looking forward in this game?
Well, I'm looking forward in this game and the remaining games of the season to see Klay Thompson come off the bench as the sixth man. So I'm really wanting to see how that's coming together and how that's going to fit into their play. I don't know why they picked up Chris Paul. I never thought he was the right fit for Golden State on the offseason. And I just never seen that puzzle piece coming to fit in with them. But I'm definitely interested in seeing that. And then on the other side of it, I'm interested if LeBron doesn't play and Anthony Davis doesn't have someone getting in his ass constantly, are we going to see the 15 points and 3 rebound Anthony Davis, or are we going to see the double-double Anthony Davis? So I'm really looking forward to see how this comes into play tomorrow night, especially if Bron isn't playing.
Yeah, the Lakers could get run out of town, right? If LeBron doesn't play and AD has one of those games. It could be interesting. Drew, did you have another take on this? Your hand's still up on Zoom.
Oh yeah. So about the Lakers, it should be interesting to see how they play without Bron, because he's a main initiation, for that team. Without him, they kind of play better in my opinion, just because they play more freely. Like Austin Reeves and Rui, they play better without Brown in my opinion. So I actually see them trading them two eventually, to get another star, because that's what the Lakers do. But yeah, they gonna get somebody. I don't know.
Rui with the curl
they
is
gonna
the
get
key
somebody.
to the team, man. Rui with the curl. Watch out. Put him in the game, man.
No, they should play him more. They definitely should play him more.
Yeah. Yeah, he's had his
playing good
moments of flash. I mean, the rumors are that someone big's coming to LA in the offseason. They're going to have to give up somebody. So I think those are the two guys, Drew.
Yep.
I'm
gonna have to be.
I think that's another problem with LA too, though. They try each year, they want to do these big trades, and there's no chemistry ever being formatted or built, because even though LeBron says he's not the general manager, he is the general manager, and he's going in here and saying who needs to leave and who we need to bring in, and then we're right back to square one.
Everybody LeBron gets rid of, go wins the championship.
Yeah, on paper,
That's the problem,
that
having
teamwork
LeBron
messenger, they
James
should have
on the
lost,
team
man. They
right
should have
now.
lost.
Well, it's a Bay Area team, so go Warriors. Okay, I just want to make that clear. I know it's like now I'm going to have a team I got to root for every time.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. But I'm really interested though. I think Clay coming off the bench, if he can accept that role, will be a very interesting play with them going down into this last stretch. Because at first it looked like they were only going to possibly maybe make a play-in game to get into the playoffs, but now they might be the 7th seed. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, Clay's saying all the right things. Let's see if he really shows up and plays well off the bench or not. I think
35 against the Jazz his first game off the bench. So
exactly.
But honestly, I think CP3 should hit the bench and run that second team, man. But
I think he should hit the door because I don't understand why he's here. So
I
honestly,
wouldn't be surprised Klay Thompson is trying out for his next team. I would not be surprised if Klay Thompson is trying out for his next team.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't think he wants to be coming off the bench.
Put him on the Lakers.
Close this segment with Trip and Jackie. I want to make sure we get to one last thing before our stop at 10. Although we don't have to have a hard stop if we're all having fun. But Trip, what are you looking forward to in this game tomorrow?
I think Anthony Davis is going to dominate this game. Golden State still doesn't have anybody that can stop Anthony Davis, whether LeBron plays or not. The Lakers are starting to heat up right now. I forget what was that mentioned. They've been making these big trades every year, but they didn't make any trades coming into the trade deadline this year. So they've been able to build on that. D'Angelo Russell has been hot the last couple of weeks. They won 6 out of their last 7. They beat the Celtics without LeBron playing, and Boston is arguably the best team in basketball right now. I think they go in and win this game. I do think the Warriors, the best thing they could have did was to bench Klay Thompson because he's not Game 6 Klay anymore. So I think that was the best thing that they could have did, and I'm glad that it seems like he's taking it in stride being benched, but I hope that he embraces that role because I think that'll be a lot better for Golden State moving forward if he's able to embrace that role. And him and Chris Paul coming off the bench together, I think can actually be a very formidable duo.
Yeah, that would be possibly the best all-time bench duo coming off there. Who do you think is going to guard AD? They're going to put Kuminga on him, or?
I mean, you could throw whoever you want in Golden State at AD, but there's nobody. I mean, look what happened in the playoffs. Last year, they don't have anybody that can stop.
They're not tall enough. They're just not tall enough, man.
Don't have anybody that can stop the Joker. Any team that has a dominant big man, Golden State is going to struggle with because they don't have the size. And Looney is not, somebody who could just, even if he's playing well, he's not stopping nobody. He'll get abused. Draymond is just getting foul trouble or wind up fighting somebody and getting kicked out of the game, trying to guard AD the whole night. So I still think the Lakers have a good chance of winning this game, even without LeBron playing.
Yeah. Good take. All right, Jackie, close us out. What are you looking forward to most in this game tomorrow night?
Oh, man, I just think, without LeBron, man, Billy Goat's not going to be there. The Lakers are going to win. It's what they do when he's not on the court. It's the pressure. It's the pressure of him not being there, him being there when they play, that really makes them mess up. It makes everybody nervous. But when he's not there, everybody's just playing. Everybody's flowing. And honestly, my man Rui with the curl is like a great value, LeBron James. He can go out there and do all the stuff. He can do all the stuff, and he can make less money, and everybody else don't have to worry about the pressure of passing him the ball. And like everybody's saying, Golden State they're not tall enough, man. They're just not tall enough to play against teams that have an honest big man, and that's their flaw. They can shoot out the gym, but when you get down low, that's what happens. They just fall apart.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. Do they play better without LeBron tomorrow or not? I said we were closing this segment with Jackie, but I saw David put his hand up. David's the OG. He's been on every show since we started last week. So you've earned a right to chime in if you want, David.
It's just a quick question for Jackie because he's saying go down low, and Trip was saying, run it through AD, but AD's so frustrating. He could be the most dominant man in the game if he wanted to be, but sometimes like he's scoring the same amount of points as I am, get as many rebounds as I am here on the bench. It's so frustrating to watch. Can you really trust Anthony Davis over the Golden State Warriors?
This year you
That's
can.
the question I have.
No, you
This year
can't. No, you can't.
No,
This year you can.
this year he's been a little bit better,
Yeah.
but he is still so
Yo.
inconsistent. What
Look,
was that
he
game
is.
like at the beginning of the season when he had 3 points and 2 rebounds? Like, what are you kidding me? What are we doing?
This year he took off the street clothes, actually put on a uniform, and he's no longer Mr. Glass. Like he's just out there.
Yeah,
He's
we'll
out
see.
there.
Yeah, but he'll
He's
still have
balling,
like
and
the
he's
first
been their
half
best
he'll
player
play
all
well,
year.
but the second half will be sucking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Listen,
What are you going to get from him? He's not. After, if winning a championship made you fat and happy and that's all you ever wanted, he is the picture person for that. Because he went out and he got his championship with LeBron and he hasn't done anything
This is by far
since.
This is by
He
far
was
AD's
fat
best
and
year.
happy. The only thing he did was go out there and get him a double R. Outside of that, he has not done anything else.
Look, I
That's
don't
true.
like AD like the rest of the people. He left us hanging out here and blamed us because he was horrible in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? We had Rondo and Drew Holiday lock up Portland. We had the guys. We was ready to go. AD was supposed to carry us. He didn't carry us and he dipped on us. But I'm telling you now, he's been balling this year. He's been balling and like he inconsistent, but not this year.
Listen
But
very
still,
carefully,
AD
guys.
is
I'm
still
gonna tell
always
you.
disappointing. In the
I'm a,
playoffs, he's going to be always disappointing.
well, he's not a true big man. You guys understand. He was
Right,
like
he's a power
6'3" in
forward.
high school. When the playoffs come, he is not going to play the center. The Lakers need a true big man so he can play the 4 because that's where he's comfortable. When he
I
has
agree.
to go up against the Joker, he's gonna eat his lunch.
That's their flaw. That's their flaw. AD is a power forward. He's a Kevin Garnett
yes.
times
Yeah.
Tim Duncan
He's
type
really
guy.
he's a tall, small
and they
forward,
put him at
really.
center, and they make him. They just mess up their lineup when they put him at center.
No, they
He's a
missed somebody
tall,
like
small
Dwight
forward.
Howard
That's
and
it.
Jamel
You're saying
McGee.
it's messing up the lineup, but you just said that he's going to dominate the post.
Yeah, but
No.
but that's against shorter teams. We talking about Golden State, man. Who they have taller than
Yeah.
Kuminga?
But
Facts.
understood. But my point was, is he going to show up? He's so
Oh yeah,
inconsistent.
he gonna ball out tomorrow because ain't nobody guarding him. He can see over everybody's head, man. He's shooting
He
threes.
better.
He's gonna have 20
had a break.
rebounds. He's going
28
crazy.
and 14 easy tomorrow.
Yeah, easy.
If he does it, he just don't like straight up just start shooting because he's like, oh, playing Golden State, I'll just shoot the basketball. Like,
Nah,
no,
they
get
got
on
White
the post
Insanity.
and
They got
press the
White
people down.
Insanity. White Insanity is gonna shoot a lot tomorrow. Y'all, LeBron's not playing, so watch out for Reeves, man. He come in there, White Insanity up.
Well, I think
Watch out for Spencer Dinwiddie.
the AD critics have a lot of valid points. I feel like he's a guy who all he needs this year's playoffs is one good series. If they come in and knock off Denver this year in the playoffs, suddenly the whole story of AD's career can be changed. He's one good series away, but as of now, he's just had that one good bubble run and a lot of disappointments.
Nah, he got to win a Finals MVP, man. I'm talking about him.
I think he just
Philly, they're 1-1. Denver and LA in the playoffs. They got Denver in the bubble and won the chip. Denver got them last year won the chip. So they
And
won
and the only reason they won the ship
Bubble don't count.
the only reason they won the ship in the bubble is because LeBron called the commissioner and complained about the refs because the niggas were playing him too hard. So then they went out there and called all them unnecessary damn fouls. And
Everybody
that's how
went
they got
home in
that
the bubble, man.
championship because LeBron's
Nobody wanted
whiny
to
ass
play.
was
Lakers
whining.
went home too in the bubble.
I'm just saying.
Well, now we got all the conspiracy people out there.
When
I
LeBron went,
like it. Hey,
conspiracy behind it. LeBron can't.
That's what's made for the internet is to open up all those doors. All right, I got one last topic I've been waiting to get to that I really want to get everyone's takes on. It starts around fantasy football because I'm sure everyone here plays. Everyone loves fantasy football. Like I literally jones for it after I'm done. I think I had over 100 teams this year if you count all my best ball teams. And it's been such a big part of the growth of NFL, this popularity of NFL is fantasy football. And so my question that I really want to get everyone's input on is, what can the NBA do, or we do, to save or to promote fantasy NBA? Why is fantasy, the question really is, why is fantasy football so popular and fantasy NBA is not, and what can we do about that? Because I feel like if the NBA could tap into fantasy sports the same way the NFL has, they could be right there seeing the same growth that they have. So it's a topic that I feel needs some masterminding, and that if we can come up with some great ideas, that we could literally propel the league forward to new things. All right, I love seeing some hands up on this. We'll go first to Trip. Trip, what makes fantasy football so great that's not in fantasy basketball, and what can we do about it?
I think so. What sets fantasy football apart is the scheduling. It's the perfect length of a season. Basketball, baseball is harder to do because there's so many games. People kind of get out of it. Sometimes it's easy for you to get out of it because it's just so many games. Season is so long. I love watching basketball, for 82 games. But with football and fantasy football, I'm not trying to sit up here all 82 games every week and be adjusting my lineups in the roster. Football is just so much easier to do because the season is a lot shorter.
Okay, fair point. So, and if we're trying to take these points and brainstorm solutions, let's put into again, we'll put all the ideas into the conversation. What if the NBA reconfigured its schedule to play like, I don't know, maybe you play a home and home with one team a week, and you'd have a hype for the week leading up to that game. They'd play twice. Maybe they play a 3-game series. I mean, maybe this is something the NBA should consider. The schedule, the way it is now, I mean, they're doing all this stuff to try to get people interested in it all, and it doesn't really work. So I think that's one idea. Thanks for the input there, Trip. And let's go next to Bobby, and let's try to keep it to one main thought from each person so that everyone gets to go in our time here tonight. Go ahead, Bobby. What does fantasy football, what else that we haven't covered have? Then what can we do to fix fantasy basketball?
Right. Well, that was a great points that was just made, and that's all 100% correct. This is going to be the fix, in my opinion. You can't, since the season's so long, it's just hard to do it during the season. Plus, the guys don't play every game, and, they miss a lot of games. So what they should do, and what the NBA should do, is just promote it for the playoffs. So, because you promote it for the playoffs, it would work. It'd be less teams, and we would care, and then the players care. So that would be my fix for it, is to do it just during the playoffs.
I like that. I play fantasy football through the NFL playoffs. We do a draft where you have to assess, like, how far do I think this team's going to go? How many games am I going to get out of these players? They could do a same sort of thing for fantasy basketball. Good input.
Greg, I knew you was going to like that.
Nice. All right. Jackie, what else you got? What does fantasy football have that fantasy basketball doesn't, and how can we fix it?
It's the load management thing, man. I think they're already working on it kind of with the 65 games rule and things like that. But if you can't trust a player to be in the lineup, and then you already got to watch your lineup as it is, and then some of them just, soon as before the game, they're out of the game. You don't know they're going to not play, so it's like you got to be able to know or trust that these players that you got on your fantasy team is actually going to be playing in the game. And if you can't trust that, it's not going to work out for them. So they just got to make sure the players are out there on the court. You know what I mean?
So do you think less games that are quality games actually makes it more valuable? Because the NBA would say, like, we need all these 82 games because we need this ticket revenue. I don't think they really look at the revenue, though, that comes in from fantasy.
No, we just need the players out there. It don't matter if it's 65 games, 82 games, like he just said about the playoffs. The playoffs, everybody knows everybody's going to be there. And even if they hurt, they're going to try to be there. So,
with 82 games, they would say that it's not possible for everyone to play every game, right? There's too much risk of injuries. And I think, to me, there's something to be said for, like, every NFL game means something because there's only 17 games, right? Yeah. With 82 games, if you lose one, it's not a big deal. Would they have better drama, better fantasy sports if they played less game? Maybe they play, a 30-game schedule like they do in college.
Or maybe if the players were required to be available during televised games, then they playing, you can go ahead and make your fantasy pick.
Yeah. Got it. Like it. All right, Dan, what do you got? What does fantasy football have that fantasy basketball doesn't, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, I think shortening would certainly that would be intriguing. You see it like in a video game era where you can just send me seasons and make it from 82 to shorter seasons. But I think it was Tripp that mentioned the scheduling. I think football's king. I mean, you can argue it's the most entertaining sport to watch, but everybody's got eyeballs on it for the red zone in terms of 7-8 hours of football if you're counting the Sunday night game. The whole day belongs to football. And then you got Monday night and Thursday night games, of course. But it's hard because, like in basketball and baseball, it really is a true marathon where it's nonstop. So it's a little bit too much, almost like information overload for the average sports fans. That if they're trying to gamble, it's a lot because now you got too many games to pick from. You could be looking at tomorrow night's game. Obviously, there's no NBA tonight, so of course we're looking for tomorrow. But if on a normal Wednesday, we'd be talking some games tonight, and then you got TNT games historically on Thursday night games, and ESPN and Friday night games, and then Sunday afternoon games on ABC. It just seems like there's not really a downtime to catch your breath and look if you're doing fantasy and saying, all right, here's my matchup for if you're doing NFL week to week, and most people do. So I think maybe shorten the season, try to make it collective where you can have more eyeballs on a given day or time slot where you have a bunch of games. And obviously that may be tough because it's not quite like football, but I think that's why football is, so relevant and so vital for fantasy sports, and gambling is really taken over for that, is because there's so many people are watching it in that slight time frame. Like the NCAA tournament, you got, those 4 days, those Thursday and Friday games, you got 32 games, or 16 and 16 on Thursday, Friday, whereas it's basketball, it's like you get 6 tomorrow, 8, 9, 5. You're the average person, you were all visual learners. It's nice when you have everything kind of in front of you and you get some time to recoup, not only as a sports fan, but as a gambler and in fantasy sports. If you could somehow minimize the season, get your stars to play, obviously there's a lot to be fixed. I'm not sure if it could ever match up to the NFL, but certainly you can make a strong case for maybe it being more relevant from the fantasy perspective.
Yeah, so I mean the schedule and kind of the makeup of it is definitely a big part of this. And so if we're trying to brainstorm solutions to that, what if we take 3 teams? Suppose they play every weekend.
Yeah.
You only play on the weekends. Maybe somebody gets a Monday night game, and maybe 3 teams. Like if the round robin is Knicks, Sixers, Celtics this weekend, they're all playing each other. And there's this hype. I feel like, if you look at it, I work in a marketing agency, right? So I study things like, how does Hollywood hype a movie? There's like a trailer, there's a lead up to it. You never have that really in the NBA.
Correct. There's always something happening.
Which they have in football. That hype is a big part of the build up to it. And then and it's so good at football that I'll pay attention to every game every Sunday because I have fantasy players in every game, right?
Yep.
If the NBA could get that going, if we could help them come up with an idea to get to that, I think that would be like cracking the code of taking the league to the next level. And I do think it's possible in fantasy sports. All right, let's continue with some takes here. These are good. Yolanda, what does fantasy football have that fantasy basketball doesn't, and what can they do to fix it?
Yeah, so just a disclaimer here. You are talking to the Fantasy Football League champ again, second time in 2 years, one woman amongst all these men, but I still got the trophy sitting on my mantle. All right, but
you go,
by the
girl.
way, fantasy football, winning fantasy football is the luckiest thing in the world. It's like more luck than a March Madness.
No.
Accomplishments, man.
Yeah, look, okay. Only
Don't
girl
listen to
in
the
the
haters,
league.
Yolanda.
But
Just do your thing.
Thank you. Where I think basketball could come into play for me, to Tripp's point and others, that the schedule and there's too many games and really focusing on getting your players in and out. How about they set it up in 2-week spans? So your players are in there for those 2 weeks. And then you take an accumulative point total from those 2 weeks of all those players playing, and then set it up that way. And then you play 2 seasons. You play the first half till the All-Star break, and then you play the second half after the All-Star break. So then that way
you're talking about the actual, you're talking about fantasy sports or the actual?
Yeah, the fantasy sports. So you set your fantasy teams up, and the first half is the first part of the fantasy. And then you can have a championship at the All-Star break. And then
so you get a reset. You get a reset.
And then you get a reset at the
that.
second half after the All-Star break and go there. But I think if you set it up in 2-week increments, and then you take an accumulative point totals from your players in those 2 weeks, then more people will be more interested and involved, because that way we're not trying to put players in and out on a constant basis.
Yeah, okay. I think there's some interesting nuggets you're putting in there. I'll say this: if we look at fantasy football objectively, draft day is like my favorite day of the year, right? That's why I draft 100 teams. I don't even look at 90 of those teams. They're best ball teams where you don't put in your lineup. But everyone loves the draft, right? So if there was a way to have more drafts, that would be better, which is kind of what Yolanda is saying here. I'll say this as someone who's like experimented with these things, is that the last year I played fantasy basketball and actually had enough people that wanted to play was COVID. And the reason why is season didn't start till Christmas. To me, that's the easiest fix. Nobody wants to think about the NBA, myself included. Basketball is my number one sport, but in October, I'm not in the mood to draft a fantasy basketball team. It's just, I'm still too deep into football. It's just getting going. So if the NBA just moved the start of the season to Christmas and moved the end of the season to the end of July, which is when football starts again, it would be like the perfect match to things. And the reason I bring that point up was what, to Yolanda's point, I've tried starting fantasy basketball leagues at Christmas where they've already been playing, and it sucks. The whole like speculation about whether a player is going to be good this year or not is gone once the season starts. And it's like you're just looking at what their stat line is, and you're putting together your teams on this. And it only works, from my opinion, in the off season, because then you're actually like speculating on things instead of just crunching numbers on things. Jordan, what do you think? What makes fantasy football so popular that's not in fantasy NBA, and what can we do to fix it?
I think like the main reason why is it's like I think fantasy football is more simpler than fantasy basketball, because you gotta think about it, like in fantasy football, when you're picking players based on positions and everything like that. Then fantasy basketball, it's like you can pick players based on positions, but different players play like many different positions and different setups. It's not like, okay, like in football, it's like quarterback. Here's a list of quarterbacks I can pick through from 32 teams. It's like if you like go in basketball, point guard, it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players, but like those players can play shooting guard. And also you have like LeBron, who's like a power forward, but also he can play point guard type deal. And it's just that their variability, and it just kind of makes it very much harder, especially coming to like making teams and like getting the fantasy. Like it's just like I think people really just don't. I think people just be like bringing their hair out to like making like sufficient teams.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point that I feel part of the popularity of fantasy football is that there's so much luck that any idiot can win. And I'm not saying anyone here won because of that, right? I'm sure you guys all, are in the most.
I like how you had to back check. Any idiot can win.
No one who actually scores the touchdown is unpredictable. And especially if you're playing head to head, you can have the best team all year and just lose in the last week. We've all had that happen to us, right? And that doesn't happen in NBA basketball as much because it's an average. Over an 82 game season, usually in a like if you play real fantasy basketball, you usually play week to week. If you play head to head, and you take the average of what your player does, and players perform at their average over the course of 3 games or 4 games. So it's actually much more predictable. And for people that research a sport, you can consistently win and dominate. I have in NBA fantasy leagues because the stats play out over the course of the average. So I think if you embrace that, it can become a strength. Like, we're real sports fans. Are you sick of like losing in fantasy football to the guy who got lucky in the last week of the season? You want to play a game where actually your knowledge truly plays out. That's the NBA sports. It's fantasy NBA. David, what do you got on this?
Yeah, for sure. So I think everybody made great points about the load management, the length of the season. I think Jordan hit it right on the head. It's the uniqueness of the NFL. You have running backs, you have your quarterback, you have your receivers, you have your tight end, you have your defense, you have your kicker. They all specialize in different things, right? So what I think should actually be done with fantasy NBA is dumb it down, right? So like when you go to like the ESPN page and you look up like the preview for the game, it'll say this person leads points, this person leads assists, this person leads rebounds. You like this? This is just making it as simple as possible. Choose 3 players a week. This is the person you want for your points. This is the person you want for your assists. This is the person you want for your rebounds. Just go based off of that. That way you don't have to worry about every game having to, okay, LeBron's not playing tonight, and maybe I'll have John Morant can drop 30. Just put John Morant. He'll play 3 games that week, so he might give you 25 to 30 a game. You'll get the points for that. You can put your center in. Shaq's gonna play this week. He's good for 10 rebounds a game, so I know I'm good for 30 points right there. Chris Paul, point guard, he's gonna be good for 10 assists a game, whatever. So that's 10 points right there. I think just make it as simple as possible. Take the positions are pretty much already out of basketball, anyways. So your point specialist, your assist specialist, your rebound specialist, call it a week.
Yeah. I think simplifying it makes sense. I played fantasy basketball and fantasy football when I was in college, and I graduated in '94, pre-internet. And so we would get out of the newspaper every morning. It was my job. I ran the league, points, rebounds, assists, because that's all I felt like tracking down out of the box scores back then. By the way, that keeper league in football is still running since 1994. But the NBA, when the guys started having kids, we kind of got rid of that. But yeah, it was just points, rebounds, and assists. I always thought it was funny, like that, blocks and steals, like you're usually picking some obscure player that leads the league in blocks so your team can win that category. And like, if you're getting 2 blocks a game and my guy's scoring, if I have Kobe who is leading the league in scoring, like, those 2 players are equal in the fantasy NBA ecosystem, and that's just not realistic or representative of basketball. So you make a good point about that. Well, I have some ideas too. Everything you guys shared here is great. This is a conversation that I want to continue, and I think could pick up some momentum for us in social media, because I think it's not something other people talk about, but that is a good topic that's good for the league and will be good for all of us as fans. And I'm really a visionary around building communities and fans as communities. And I was thinking this week, as everyone was like, how can we fix the All-Star game? And one of the ideas that I came up with is what if the NBA had an NBA endorsed fantasy basketball, and we could use all the ideas everyone had here, but to incent more people to play, the top 4 players would get to be captains and pick the NBA All-Star teams. And they'd have one prize that's $100,000 prize, not each player, but the fan would get that prize of the winning team. And so imagine it be, me, David, Danny, and Jordan. If we all played fantasy basketball the best on the official league site and won, we'd get to be at All-Star Weekend, and we'd do a fantasy draft there, which I think would be amazing drama on TV, getting to see who the fans pick. And then I think the players would play their ass off. Like, they'd get to know you and want to win for you. Maybe they make it $1 million prize for you. And the league could get, everybody into this All-Star Weekend by embracing the fantasy side of it all. So that's part of my vision for what we could do.
Well, hey, they'd play defense, that'd be nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you get them to play defense, It'd be like, there's $1 million on the line for Greg here. That's a lot of money for me, man. Come on, get out there. I'll get in. And you want to wait till the fans see me get in LeBron's face telling him to play defense, right?
I would say, Greg, I think one thing that NFL gets it right with the fantasy is that NFL actually, I feel like they embrace fantasy and gambling more than the NBA. And I do feel like NBA, if they want to bring more fans into it, they need to start embracing that. But all that, I got to get myself going because it is like 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah, I hope you don't have a game tomorrow. For those of you that don't know, Jordan plays pro ball over in Europe. We appreciate you joining us. It's 4 a.m. where you are now.
Yeah, I got like practice late, so like I'm not doing anything in the morning, so I'm sleeping in.
All right, go get him, Jordan.
Great to have
Good
you. And
or early morning.
Your final point was a good one about the NFL really embracing fantasy football. You hear the players talking about. I've never heard an NBA player talk about fantasy basketball. It's just not integrated. It's not on their radar. I will say that I completely separate gambling and fantasy. I kind of stand against gambling. To me, that's we've had some conversations about this before, and it's something that I'm kind of feeling out on the show. I'll be honest, the show is very much unfolding as we do this. I'm trying to be very transparent. Like, I don't want to alienate our entire audience, because most people do bet on sports. But I feel like gambling is very destructive, and fantasy football over the course of a season is not really gambling. It
makes it more fun. It makes it less stressful, and it gives you like your honest opinion or eyes that you see with the game. You can try to use them to your benefit.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm not here to judge anyone, but I feel like if you're a true fan of the game, you know the teams, you know the players, you know the history of the league, the history of the teams. You don't need to bet on a game to make it more interesting. To me, that's a weak fan. I don't know anybody in this game. I'm going to throw $20 on it to make it better, or throw a parlay here to make this more interesting. Like, what does that say about you as a true fan? What does that say about you and your life and where money is? Like, is that how you look at people? If you would invest in learning the story and of the teams and the leagues, which obviously everyone here loves sports and knows sports. It's interesting. And I'll on the Super Bowl, I threw a parlay down. So I'm not saying I don't do it, but I also, value my money, and I know that they're stacking the deck against us, right? In the states I'm in, they won't even let you play unless you're doing parlays, and so right there, I got to pick two things right to win. So they're stacking the deck against us, and we work hard for our money. They're giving us false hope, and I kind of advocate for fantasy sports, but against gambling. I think that's another voice that's not really out there on the internet.
What do you think about things like DraftKings? Like what's your stance on that?
On what is it?
On like the DraftKings, where it's basically you're gambling the one day on the players you pick.
Yeah, one day on the players you pick. I think if you're doing something that's over the course of a season, then that's entertainment to me. If you're doing something that is a one game or a one night fix, that's an adrenaline rush, a dopamine rush. And that's dopamine is addiction. I mean, now you're kind of getting into life skills here, but there's a difference between pleasure and happiness. And pleasure comes from dopamine. You eat a donut, you have pleasure. You eat a donut every day, you're not going to be happy. Love and joy in life comes from serotonin in the brain. And as we become more dopamine addicted, which gambling is all about, the dopamine drive, you're feeding into that, and then you need more of that. Like you won't be happy with normal life. You won't be happy with a normal spouse. Like the same type of things that the porn addiction people talk about at my church it's really the same dopamine chemical in gambling as well. And it's a very dangerous, slippery slope that I feel is, in our culture, we're addicted to dopamine from our phones so much.
Man, I love donuts, man. Why'd you have to use donuts?
Well, and
I
I'm
feel
open-minded. These are the hard conversations I feel like no one's having on the internet that I want to have. And I'm open-minded and I don't judge. I accept everyone and, love everyone, whether you gamble or not. I'm not saying I don't gamble sometimes as well. And, but I've also lived through the slippery slope of it. Like I've had some family members that have gambled and stolen from me. And I've seen how like it can really
no, it's like crack.
family. Alex, did you have something to add on that?
Yeah, I agree to an extent with everything you're saying. I'll play devil's advocate here. I know we're almost at time. Well, we're over time here.
We're in
but,
overtime.
We in
yes,
OT, baby.
sweet. So, like you said, Greg, gambling isn't legal here in Wisconsin. I usually, my motto is you can bet as much as you can afford to lose. So, fully transparent, one of my good friends is my bookie, and he has a group of us as bookies. So it's not like he's going to come and bust my kneecap if I'm down a couple $100. But we had a friend who went down like 15 grand with our friend. So it ruined the friendship, and he would lie and ask for money, say his car broke down and stuff. And we read him like a book. He actually, fortunately doesn't gamble anymore. He got help, but just, gambling, betting what you can lose. I'm lucky to have, a friend that does it. It's nice and everything, but I would never like have a bookie from, go down to the city of Milwaukee and get a guy from Milwaukee as a bookie, because that would scare the shit out of me if I ever lost a bet and didn't pay. But yeah, to your point, I think, or to counter your point, I think that, the motto should be never gamble what you can afford to lose. So
yeah, I said that a lot too, and we had this talk last week on one of our shows. It's not something we always get into. It just kind of came up in the flow of things tonight. And but the person that was on the show, I won't name names, they obviously it's there in the replays, but they really touched me when they talked about like that's like their hope. Like he's playing like a 17 parlay every night for $10, like hoping to win 10 grand would change his life. And it's the same kind of mindset, people that buy lottery tickets, and I get that. I'm trying to be more compassionate for like, there's some hope in that. We heard from people that are like, I watch sports all day and this is the only way I can rationalize spending this much time as on it is, maybe I'll make some money from this, as another kind of step into this.
You make a good point. You make a good point as far as like the fantasy and the gambling. Like gambling is more about the discipline, and fantasy is more fun.
Right.
And it's stressful, you know what I mean?
Also, Greg, I think you mentioned, and correct me if I'm mistaken, like you were talking about the addiction with gambling. You get these people who are addicted. They're betting on games where they have no idea, like either the win or loss records or who's playing. I bet on games where I think I know the most about those teams, and that's kind of how I do it. But I mean, that'd be an interesting study. I don't know if there's anything out there on that, but that'll be interesting to compare that. Where the addiction comes up in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, the people setting the spreads are professionals who do this for a living, have the best computers, the best AI. Like for any one of us to think we're going to outsmart them consistently, you might in any one game, but consistently beat them, it just doesn't seem realistic to me. When I hear people talking about like, hey, we're going to crack the code of this. If we could do that, we'd all be rich. I don't know that anybody is doing that. And, I see handicappers that are out there in social media talking about that. And, I just find it really hard to believe. Like if the old game of how the handicappers used to do it, you would get what happened. In the old days, in my days, the 80s, they let them be on infomercials, and you would call the number to get your picks. And let's say 1,000 people called and they're picking one game. They give 500 one game, 500 the other game. And so 500 people think, oh my God, you won. It's a free pick, the first one, right? So now they got 500 people that won once with this guy. And then they call you back. I did this as a kid, right? I went through it. I called in the show, and this is what happened. They call you back, and they're like, "I'm going to give you one more pick to really prove to you that I know what I can do." So of those 500 people, they each get half the game, right? So now I got 250 people that I've won 2 in a row with. And the guy comes back to me and says, you know, to get our weekly picks, it's $500 a week. And I'm like, well, I'm only betting $20. Like, there's no way I'm paying $500 for another pick. But in his pitch is like, hey, that's how everybody who is making thousands with me started. They were all just betting $20 until they found us. And look, I've hit 2 in a row. Now, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to give you this next one. We'll have 3 in a row. And then, then you'll be confident, right? Then you're ready to do it. And again, now they got 250 people. So each of those people get one of the 2 games. Now they got 125 people left. I've won 3 in a row with this guy, right? I'm like, fuck, 3 in a row. Maybe he's right.
You're
So
talking
suddenly I'm paying him 500. I'm betting 500 with my bookie, and suddenly I'm down $1,000. I'm like, what the hell? This is awful.
Yeah.
And that's the racket. I don't know, if there's any licensing of that, or I just don't see how anybody can be consistently, beating these things. I follow some of the people online. I don't know if anybody else has any other takes on that. And, if you're betting to make the games more interesting, let's hope something like this can make the games more interesting for you. Let's hope getting into the story of the players can make the big games, for you. Like, this is Ole Miss versus Mississippi State that's on. You would think I don't know anything about these 2 teams, but if I'm 2 clicks away from reading like, oh, this is a big in-state rivalry, right? And maybe, this kid played against that kid in high school. That's fun. That can make any game interesting when you invest in the story of it. And the bigger thing that I want to talk about is that's a skill for life. Like, when you can invest in the story of the people you're interacting with, that's what loving thy neighbor is. You get to know their story, and suddenly we can be more tolerant of each other and kind of come together as a society. But if we're all about the money all the time, in how we gamble and how we value life, what does that say about us as a culture? Like, who are we going to be friends with? The person that can help us make money? Who are we going to date? A lot of people won't date someone unless they have a certain amount of money, and it's all embedded into the culture.
Hey guys, team, for me, it's real simple, right? I'm very simplistic. Life is about balance. Too much of anything makes you an addict. So you just have to have balance. I gamble a little bit, but I know, I grew up, so my family were gambleaholics, alcoholics, gambleaholics, and drug addicts. And I mean, I've had aunts and uncles like put the phone bill in their kid's name and, scam the system for student loans just to gamble. I mean, we would literally have $2 in the gas tank, and they would drive to the dog track or the horses and gamble with like $3. They would take our lunch money that was for school and go gamble. So it is a serious addiction, but you just have to have balance. So I don't think gambling is bad. I think it's fun, but in spurts. I wouldn't do it. I mean, I know people that do it for a career. They make a lot of money. What works for you may not work for everybody else, right? So, that's just kind of my take on it. I don't feel like it's horrible if you have a balance and you do it. But like bookies, they earn a great living. That's their job. You go to Vegas, they make a good living. So I don't think it's just all negative. I just think that you have to have balance. When you start not being able to pay your bills, then you got to look in the mirror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, balance is definitely a key, and if we want to see what gambling does on a culture in a microcosm, look at the Indian reservations, right? There's a lot of documentaries about how, the gambling and the casinos and has destroyed everywhere they go, their culture and the Indian reservations with casinos. But balance is the key. I mean, there's just as many people that I have people in my life that are like, you watch a little bit too much sports, Craig. Like, where's the balance in this? Like, and when I was raising my kids, I really just watched the playoffs during those years. I was at their games. I didn't watch every game the way I do now that I'm empty nest and at a different place. But I also look at things and I lean into it. I'm like, well, I just like, I just like watching Pat McAfee every day. And why don't I lean into that? Why don't I find a way to create a business and create something fun for me and for all of us where we don't have to like fight the urge to go do that. Let's lean into that and find a way to capitalize on that and go all in on that. And that's part of what I'm trying to build in this show for me and for everyone who's here. But balance is a part of it.
And
If
you
you're
gotta know
watching
yourself too.
fantasy football instead of paying attention to your kids, that's not healthy, right?
Don't forget, you got to know yourself too. Like if you have an addictive personality, if you are an extreme person and you know you can't just do something once or twice or for a weekend and leave, then avoid things that'll do damage to you, like gambling, because you'll do it once and then you'll love it, or then you got to do it a million times. You can't just do it for a getaway, So that's another thing to remember. My my father, may he rest in peace. He used to gamble on the weekends on football, and but he only bet what he knew he could lose. And one funny, I was in New York and we were watching the Giants, and he told me he bet the Giants because we were New Yorkers. He said if they win, he would take me to Kitty City and get me some toys. So of course now I went from just rooting for the Giants to really rooting for the Giants. And sure enough, it was a fourth quarter game. The Giants won. I was super pumped. We ended up going to Kitty City. I ended up getting a football. I needed one, but but that's where you realize, okay, because when you win, you start getting things. That's where you got to know yourself. Be like, is this something I want to do? I can do casually, or is this something I can get addicted to? You know what I mean? But
yeah, I mean, I love the story with you and your father there. I'm a believer that everyone has their things they are addicted to. Some people might be addicted to church or addicted to their spouse or or addicted to going to the gym. You might funnel that. To me, the word addiction is focus. It's what do you focus on in life that's part of this. And I want to explore some of these topics and narratives, like the narrative of you should only gamble what you can afford to lose is generally accepted. But who says, right? Let's explore that. What if that's a lie? What if that's still, let's suppose that was $20 a week and that's $1,000 a year that was lost, that he could have bought you a lot of toys and a lot of stuff. Who can afford to lose any money? Like none of us really. So let's just explore some of these stories, these beliefs, these quotes about things, and see if they're absolute truth, because there's always two sides to every story. What are you getting on this, Trip?
Well, I was gonna say just in regards to like I guess what you can afford to lose. I mean, realistically, how much money do we spend on nonsense that we don't really need during the year anyway, right? So what's the difference between that and me saying, all right, I'm gonna put $20 on the game, you know?
Right, instead of a hat, right?
Yeah.
Like I could be a shopaholic and spend the extra $1,000 to $5,000 a year on sneakers. You know what I mean? Like, so I could relate that to gambling too. We just out here
I
just
think the danger with it is that you get people who chase what they lose. So let's say somebody loses $5, and they might try to double up and get 10.
You're like, I was almost there. I almost won.
Yeah, I think that's where the danger lies, because if you buy a hat, you've got your hat, you made your investment, you wear it, but yes, and this isn't everyone. Some people, I lost $5, okay, that's it. I won $5, okay, that's it. Some people, okay, well, I won. Let me try to double that now. And there's just so many dangers with it. I know because I fall into that every once in a while, but there's just it's not one-to-one with an investment like a hat or stock
or donuts.
Donuts, yeah.
I'm definitely not a gambler. I'm a tangible person. I need to touch things. I need to feel things. So even the very first time I went to Vegas, and I'll never forget this, we were in New York, playing, and I was playing the Flamin' Sevens. And I was like, I have $30. I'm putting $30 in there. This is it. That $30 netted me $850. So I cashed out that $850 and went to the Caesar Palace Mall and went shopping because that I'm a tangible. So I was like, I made this $850. I'm not putting it back in the machine, but I can go buy this Furlaw purse at the Caesar's Palace Mall, and I can have this purse for years to come. And that's how I am. I'm just tangible.
You're very lucky if they say you always win your first time because that's how they try to get you hooked. In fact, that's what the gambling sites do now, right? Spend $250, and if you lose, we'll give you the $250 back. Like that's how they're trying to make this a no-brainer and really hook our generation into it. I think, again, I'm just exploring some of the deeper questions here. I'm not here to judge anyone, and I love that we can have this open conversation. I think it's worth a conversation on is why is the concept of winning money even entertaining? Like that's not like, how is that entertainment? By whose standards, and are those healthy standards for you and for society to have this concept of winning money? Money is something to be earned. And if you look at all work as service, we're kind of getting into a little bit of faith now. Your work is part of your serving, and that's how you get compensated for service. Like this concept of like winning money. Like when did winning money become part of culture?
Because everybody wants a shortcut, Greg. We all want a shortcut.
Yes.
If I can get $1 million in a month, why would I wait and work 30 years?
Everybody wants a shortcut, and that's what the people are taking advantage of. The people that want a short, there are no shortcuts in life, and that's a false dream that they're selling people, that you can have this shortcut.
They want the shortcut, and they want to be a winner. So if you can win, and you can win big, you're like, oh, I don't have to do all this other stuff I've been doing.
And you look at, you look at people that win the lottery, you never hear stories about how they live happily ever after, right? Usually it ruins their life and they're broke in a few more years. Like winning money, is not entertainment, perhaps, right? I'm just saying, try on that idea.
Plus, what makes sports great is the drama of sports, right? The drama of it. I mean, that's the hook, right? You got a team that you love. They're going up against someone else who's really tough, especially when you get towards the championship level, right? And that should be like enough to excite you, to move you, right? The drama of sports. But could you imagine if that's not enough? You still got to bet on it just to get some kind of reaction. It's
people like the bragging rights though too. So like,
yes, I think that's
competitiveness. There's a competitive nature to it.
Myself.
Yes. If I think about the times that I've bet, which I've bet this year, right? I'm not saying I don't bet. And it's like, I put $20, they make you do parlays here. If I win 5-1, $100 ain't going to change my life, right? Why am I doing this? Especially when it's something I talk against. Why am I doing it? It's like, I want to be right. Like and it's not no one even knows I made the bet, but just in myself, I want to know that I could predict what happened in this game better than they could do it. I think that's part of the draw. I don't know what you call that. I was calling it status, but it's not status because nobody else knows about it. It's
competitiveness, right?
I think maybe it is competitiveness. And so it's one of the ideas that I was thinking about building into this community was, I think it'd be fun. Like, what if we all put our bets out there every night in the chat? And you notice I'm putting the spread up there. I'm embracing, betting on the show, and we kind of have our status among our community, and we can have, like, that's, I think, the draw of fantasy football for me. I play with my friends, and these are guys I've known since college for 30 years. And I want to be better than you. I want to beat you in a trade, you in free agency. There's like that competitiveness of it. Trip, did you have something else on that?
Yeah, I was so like, for me, like it is more exciting if I'm gonna bet, I'm gonna bet on myself. So like, I'm a big gamer. So if I got friends over and we playing 2K or we playing Madden, yeah, I'm gonna bet because I control the outcome of the win and loss. I don't like to bet on things that I don't personally control. So if I'm confident enough in my skills that I will always bet on myself, whether it be in a gambling sense or just something that I want to do in life, I'm going to bet on myself. I try to, steer clear of the betting on other people, because then when people lose and you lose because of somebody else, that's when the fun comes out of it. But I'll bet I win or lose on my own account anytime.
Yeah. Do you work in sales? Because I hear a lot of sales guys will describe it like, I'm taking a job with no salary. It's 100% commission because I'm going to bet on myself. Like I've heard that.
I work in film, so it's still kind of similar, because you do have to invest in yourself. So it's still kind of, because I could buy $10,000 worth of equipment and not book no shoots.
Yeah.
Well, why do you guys think it's so many people on Skid Row and go out to Hollywood to try to make it famous? Because with gambling, you're selling people a dream. It's like pimping. You're just selling a dream. You're gonna be a star, baby. You're gonna be a star. Hey, you buy this lottery ticket, you're gonna be a millionaire. You win this, you're gonna be a billionaire. So you sell them that dream, they get hooked, and then the next thing you know, you can't pay the rent.
Yeah. Anybody else have a take on that? I had another quick story to share. I'm enjoying this, and this is some of the stuff I want to start to put out in smaller sound bites. That's another, as I'm kind of laying out our game plan here, a lot of this is trying out different takes, hearing different people's takes, and combining this into stuff that we can then put into reels that we'll then put into marketing. That's a lot of what the show is, and kind of having a base in the community. If you just put out reels, you got to have something to bring people back into, and that's what the show is going to be. And our plan is to scoop up some of this traffic that's coming to these NBA games every night. But there's a story that I find really interesting. So when I was in college, I was in a fraternity in Boston, and it used to be the all Jewish fraternity. I'm not Jewish. And the school told them you're not allowed to have just Jewish people. You have to open it up. And they
was it AE Pi?
Alpha Gamma Pi.
Oh, Alpha Epsilon Pi, though. Was it AE Pi?
Oh, no, mine was Alpha Gamma Pi. Yeah.
Okay.
I went to Bentley College in Boston, Division II school. And the joke was, hey, we'll let you in. You look Jewish. And so I have, like, a lot of my college buddies are Jewish guys. And but half of them aren't. And at our reunion, our 20-year reunion, we're kind of joking over drinks. Hey, what are you doing? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in digital marketing. A lot of these guys are CFOs and accountants, right? And we joke like, hey, you never see a broke Jewish guy, right? Like that's just kind of a given. And
well, my friend dated one, so there's an exception to every rule. I'm just throwing it out there.
There's
an exception to every rule, because
here's where I was going with this.
That was the first one I ever met as well. I was like, "You're broke." Oh.
Well, and here's where I was going with this. That ties back to betting. Because we had a very interesting conversation over drinks, and what my friend, I'd like to actually have him on the show. He explained to me that in the Hebrew language, the only words that you can use around money is essentially the word to earn money. Like that's the only word. Like, and he said in the English language, you guys can earn money, you can win money. Like there's more than one way to get it. And the reason why all Jewish people in his mind are mostly all successful, no such thing as all, it's just the concept of winning money doesn't exist in their language, thus it doesn't exist in their culture. And he says, you see this playing out a lot in American companies, like Microsoft, wants to beat the competition. They always want to crush Apple. Apple doesn't give a crap about Microsoft. They want to just serve their customers, right? And that's what he's saying is it's in their language. And what was really interesting, he made that first point, but he said, what's even more interesting is European languages, all of them, which I don't know any of them, but they have Spanish, for example, is the only one I know a little bit of. If you talk about in Spanish, they would say ganar dinero, to get money. And so in European languages, Spanish, French, Russian, all of them, they say to get money. They don't have the concept of earning or winning. And he said it's kind of up to each person to figure out how they're going to interpret that. And some people figure it out and go earn money. Some people think they're going to win money and don't get anywhere. But so it was a really interesting, lesson in language and culture. And the proof is in 90-something% of their people, are wealthy because this concept of winning money doesn't exist in their language, thus it doesn't exist in their culture. And you work in Hollywood, Trip, so I'm wondering if any of that is anything of what you're seeing about the concept of winning money.
I work in New York. I film in New York. So
okay.
Everything's shut down right now, man. Everything's just shut down. It's probably in New Orleans. I don't know about New York, but everything in New Orleans is dead right now. So the concept of
New York is all about getting money. So we're not gonna ever shut down.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure tonight. I am heading out. Good night.
Yeah, I think we all should call it a night.
But before I go, my trophy that sits on my
look at that
mantle.
She won that.
Wow,
for
that
sure.
is an
She won
impressive
that.
trophy.
That and a little bit of cash.
All right.
Well, hey, we're all going to play in a fantasy football league and a fantasy basketball league soon enough. And
Sure, guys.
Bracket.
It's been a good conversation.
Yes, very good tonight.
Fantastic.
Take care, gentlemen.
And if you're not,
Bye.
if you're still watching sports tonight, LSU is on the way making a comeback right now. It was getting blown out.
All right. See you guys.